What's up, sports fans? It's your man D back. Speak your mind sports talk. All right, check it out, man. Classic battle. Old school versus new school. So got into a little bit of a heated argument the other day. Uh, everything ended up well, but I've been on a couple of guys' channels and I'm hearing that, old school, new school, you know what I mean? So I decided this is the platform. Let's discuss it. Let's discuss, basically what what they were talking about was basically measuring and determining when someone mentions the new school boxers and then someone brings up the old school boxers, then you get into this discussion. And the thing is this, it's different eras. Simply that, it's different eras. So it's really difficult to compare eras for many different reasons. You'll never see the guys in the ring together. Some of the old school fighters, there's not footage of it. So you have to, and I think was a discussion where you have to rely on newspaper articles and such. But the way I see it is you can't leave the old school out because they're a part of boxing history. When we talk about basketball, it's not like we don't talk about Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain. When we talk about football, it's not like we don't talk about Johnny Unitas, Joe Namath, and such. So when we talk about boxing, is it really fair to leave out Joe Louis, Harry Grubb, and Sam Layfield? In a sense, it's a part of the sport, so it has to be discussed. Intangible boxing in the building. What's good with you, fam?
What's happening?
I see you here bright and early for this discussion.
Yeah, got the notification quick.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they're starting to go out now, which is a good thing. Boxing monster in the building. Coronavirus is real. Stay alive in them streets. Yeah. Staying alive is realer. Chill Smoke, what's good with you, fam? But let me take this down. But yeah, so Intangible, since you first up, I listened to your video, very good video, very good breakdown. So why don't you speak on this? Speak on your thoughts on, you could just give a lot of thoughts you gave in the video to start the conversation off. Mentioning any names, because there were some names mentioned in that video.
Well, first of all, I want to say the names I mentioned in that video, just because I mentioned those names, that doesn't mean I have issues with them. That just means I'm responding to what they're saying and just stating that I disagree with them, and that's it. But second of all, look, I don't have an issue with somebody saying that a new fighter would beat an old school fighter. I think maybe there is some merit to it, depending on what you like. If you think that, like, for example, the heavyweights of back then were smaller than the heavyweights of today. That's just a fact. Joe Louis is 6'1", and he was the greatest heavyweight for 13 years, whereas the best heavyweight today is 6'9", and then you have 6'7", 6'6", 6'5", and Dillian White. You have all different tall dudes. Okay, I understand that. But that's not how I factor all-time rankings. I don't factor all-time rankings in how you would do in fantasy fights. Why? Because that is something that can never be proven on either side. If you think old school fighters would win, that's your opinion, but that's not fact. That can never be proven. If you think new school fighters can win, fine, that's your opinion. That's not fact, and that can never be proven. But what can be proven is the fact that Joe Louis has had 25 title defenses. Okay, 25 consecutive title defenses, which is the most in boxing history. In terms of consecutive title defenses, he beat some of the most Hall of Famers in heavyweight history. He faced high levels of opposition. He was the undisputed heavyweight champion. And he beat guys like Jersey Joe Walcott, Max Baer, Buddy Baer, Primo Carnera, and, of course, Max Schmeling. Those are things that are not just opinion. Those are facts. So in order to come up with an objective way of observing how fighters are all time, you have to look at the resume. and I don't look at how skilled they are because that's just my perception. Now, my opinion on fantasy fights, maybe I would take that into account, or my opinion on what a prediction would be, maybe on the upcoming fight. That would entail opinion, but in terms of ranking fighters all time, you have to use facts, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well said. Let me go. I'm gonna make sure I catch everybody coming in. Queen Lisa first in the building. Boxing Monster. Waiting for the jokes, Boxing Monster. Chin Smoke, what's up with you, fam? We got Wooly Boy Slip and Move up in the building. What's good, Wooly Boy? Toby Barlett. What's up, Toby Barlett? Sweet Science McDojo. Hey, Sports and McDojo, y'all go check Sweet Science out, man. Let's get that man videos going. He put a good little spotlight on the sexy women of sports. I love that shit. But he talks about sports as well. So go check him out. But yeah, I agree with you on a lot of what you're saying, Intangible. And, you know, like I started the show, and you know I do other sports, you know what I mean? We talk about fighters in UFC that's not in the sport anymore, and you know, that were the pioneers of the sport. And boxing, basketball, when I talk basketball, same thing. You know, Jordan ain't played the sport in over 20 years, but they still talk about Jordan. So why is it not fair to talk about Ali and Tyson and, you know, in boxing in the same sense? And it seems as in boxing, a lot of new age fans get really offended quickly when you bring up the old school boxers. And so I can understand, you know, where you coming from with that. Because me personally, I enjoy hearing about the old school. You know, when I get on, you over there with me on Mark's channel, BL, you know what I mean? Shit, I sit back, even if I'm on the panel sometimes, I sit back and just let those guys go because I enjoy learning about the old school. I don't know why it would be offensive. It's amazing to me some of the things these guys did, the amount of rounds they fought, the amount of fights they fought within a year. You don't see those things anymore these days. And, you know, it's funny how people in this day and time die. They die off in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. These athletes, right? But then they talk about how dangerous it is and this and the third. Well, those guys fought that way and their lifespan was pretty much the same. You know what I mean? It's not like you're saving years off your life. It wouldn't appear because a lot of those fighters lived to be in their 60s and 70s. And, you know, the CTE is real, so I get that. But twice a year is ridiculous. These guys could fight more than twice a year. And I can guarantee you have guys now doing it. Navarrete is doing it. He's doing it just fine. Tevin Farmer was doing it just fine. You have guys doing it now. Anui was fighting a massive amount of fights at one point. So they're guys that's doing it. They get these belts and they get tied up in all of this politics and then it slows them down. But it can be done, you know, because all of these fighters do it. So those fighters back in the day, that's what they were doing. It's a reason they had 129 fights, 212 fights, you know what I mean? 187 fights. Freaking Ray Robinson had, 109 knockouts? 109 knockouts, bro. Just knockouts. Like, so it's no excuse when you look at the level of activity that we have. So when you start to get these comparisons, I don't think that the modern day fan, they like to hear the level of activity, but you have to factor that in. If you have a guy fighting 10, 12 times a year versus a guy fighting twice a year, you can't tell me you don't have to factor that in. But they don't like to hear that, right? So
yeah, I understand where people come from when they say evolution of the sport, but I don't know how that should be used to discredit a fighter, since the fighter fighting in that time period that you're comparing his level of opposition to, he was going through those same circumstances and those same trends. Right. And the changes in styles throughout boxing history are based on rules changes and how much more lenient the game was back then, and how they had to fight in order to win. In cases where the game was either more lenient or more, they would enforce a bit more. Like, for example, fighters back then, they had to throw more shots than fighters today. Like a fight like Robert Easter versus Rancis Barthélemy wouldn't be allowed to go to the distance. A fight like Malik Scott versus Luis Ortiz, hell, maybe even like a Mayweather fight versus like Baldomir or something like that. Those fights could be ruled a draw because neither fighter was getting hurt, or neither fighter was letting their hands go enough. Now, of course, the scientific aspect of the game has always been there. And in fact, the inventor of sort of these scientific aspects of boxing, or like the accounts and like counterpunching and like the Mayweather movement sidestepping style, was a guy by the name of Daniel Mendoza in the 1790s. He was actually invented the what's known now as the parry counter, and he did that against, his name was, I think, Humphreys or something like that. So of course that style has been there, and I don't know why people credit guys like Mayweather or Ray Robinson for introducing scientific styles of boxing, or Joe Gans.
Right.
But the game was not always very welcoming to that. They had a bloodthirsty crowd, and they needed more action, and they needed more. They needed both fighters to be going at each other's throats in many cases.
Now, since it's only us two on the panel, I'm going to play devil's advocate, but real quick, Jay Jefferson in the building. What's good with you? I seen you step in, fam. I didn't want to interrupt Intangible while he was talking, but appreciate you coming through. Hold on, Boxing Monster. I'm going to get to that comment. Tech Nation in the building. What's good? I thought I saw the Texan. There you go. The Texan, what's up with you, fam? Yeah, I feel what you're saying, Intangible. Brown Gone One, what's up with you, man? Here it is. I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Mr. Two Hands Up. What's up with you? Jay Blues in the building. What's good, fam? All right, so in that sense, you also have to see, like, okay, so a guy coming from the new school. See, it's hard for me to I'll put the link back in the chat because need other minds up here, because I actually agree with a lot of the things. Again, I have an appreciation for the old school. I just don't really have the time to dig in like you guys do. So I can't, it's hard for me to kind of, I understand what you're saying. Like, I understand where you're coming from with that. But just in the sense of the new school, it's a new era. And I think sometimes guys cross the line, not you in particular, but guys of the old school, cross the line where, in the same sense you said you can't discredit this one, you can't discredit what they're doing in their era of boxing. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, if it was this guy, he would have just beat the shit out of him. He fought 103 fights, and then you get into this kind of back and forth thing where, well, you don't know. You only know from, like, my man was saying the other day, newspaper clippings and such. You were never there, but it's still in the record books. And that's why I always say, like, even now, when it comes to, like, the Tyson Fury draw or DSMG, for God's sakes, with Danny Garcia, listen, if it's in the books, it's in the books. It's many fighters that you can say got a gift in a fight. It's many fighters that you can say got robbed in a fight. Goes down in history. Well, what's in the books is in the books, and that's all you can go off of. You can't go off of if some teamster fixed the fight or some shit. Oh, there was a lot of fight fixing going on back then. People start bringing all of this nonsense into play when you start having these discussions, and it may be true. However, you got to go what's in the books. What does it say in the books? You know what I mean? If this guy took a dive and you know he took a dive, all right, man, whatever. He's 96-17. That's what his record is. You know what I'm saying? And that's what people can't wrap their mind around.
I understand that. I mean, I gotta put it like this, right? I don't favor any era of fighting. I don't. If Manny Pacquiao were to fight until like 50 and he were to do enough to get up with the likes of Greb and Langford and pick up the wins against champions or some more Hall of Famers, I'll give him the credit he deserves. It's just that for my criteria and for the accomplishments that I factor in many cases, old school fighters do benefit from it because of the levels of activity and the trends. However, new school fighters do benefit in terms of championship belts. There are more to acquire nowadays. So there is a greater selection of belts they can get. For example, in today's era, there are 68 belts that you can collect in the sport today. 68 alphabet titles. Okay, there's 17 divisions times 4. Okay. In today's back then there was only 8 belts to select from in terms of officially. So today's belts are worth a fourth of the belts there were back then, but still, that's when you factor that in, new school fighters do get the benefit. So it's not like they're entirely I guess you could say.
Well, pause right there. Pause right there, because you said it's worth a fourth. Now, on your criteria, right? That's worth a fourth. But this is where I think things get separated from people who rate the old school versus the new school. And Tank Nation made a good comment here. He was like, there is no right or wrong answer when talking about video game fights. Basically, like when you start comparing the old school, new school, I get what he mean by that. Like, so here's the thing, Intangible. I get what you're saying on that, but then you have to understand the same way you're saying there was only 8 belts to select from. That was that era of boxing, okay? And then it's 64 belts or however many you said in this era of boxing, okay? These guys still have to fight to win those belts. And I don't care how many belts are selected or there for you to win. It's still hard to win a title, especially in this era with all the politics and the bullshit going on. It's hard to get a hold of that title. These guys still got to cut weight and train and do the things that they're doing. So if you look at it from the perspective in this era, you have to rank them on the accomplishments on what they have at this era. Now, in the perspective of somebody from the new school, they're gonna come at you and be like, "Well, what the hell do you mean that counts as the fourth?" Okay, well, it doesn't count on the fourth on their criteria. It counts as an official win, an official title, and that's where I think there's a disconnect.
Yes, I see it. I mean, I give them the benefit of the doubt for the most part when it comes to that. Now, not necessarily in the case of undisputed titles, but if we're talking about championships, I do credit them for that.
I mean, you can kind of argue that too, because I mean, what's up, man? You can kind of argue that too, because I mean, he is technically correct when he says it's the fourth of the title, because back in the days there was only 1 belt per division, so it wasn't disputed who else was the champion when somebody got the belt. You know, or unless somebody vacated or just died, then it was under discussion. But if one person had the belt, then he was the champion.
That's the thing right there. When you say he's technically correct, that's the thing right there. That's when people start to get, because just like Tank Nation said, bro, there is no right or wrong in this. So if you say that you're technically correct, that means if the newer age fans come with their perspective, then you're saying essentially that they're wrong. If he's correct, then they have to be incorrect, right? You can't.
Not necessarily, because he was talking about fantasy fights. When you're talking about what the belts were worthy,
it was an analogy, though. It was pretty much an analogy, because the title is old school versus new school. So even still, whether you are comparing eras or fight within eras or whatever, the analogy.
But he is technically correct though, because if you had 1 belt back in the hold on, just hear me out. If you had 1 belt in the 50s, you were technically undisputed. If you get 1 belt now, you're not undisputed.
Okay, well, answer me this: if you have 200 fighters fighting, and you have 8 belts, and now you have 5,000 fighters fighting, and you have 64 belts, then by ratio, is it not just as difficult to get a hold of one of those titles?
I mean, yeah.
Technically correct or incorrect. These are the things that you have to understand. There are too many variables when you start comparing. And this is why we need to have this discussion battle, because we have to get away from this thing where Charles D in the building. What's good with you? Champ Ross in the building. What's up with you, fam? Appreciate you. Ralph on Real. Get this smoke. Appreciate you. South Corey. What's up, man? Samuel Shaw. Think Cap. This is what I really want to get away from. And this is not going to solve everything, but we need to understand perspectives. I can throw in different ratios. I can guarantee you a lot of times, if you're going to say that this person's wrong, I'll listen to your explanation. And I can throw in different ratios to probably make you adjust that, because there are so many variables in comparing different eras. You can't really say somebody's right or someone's wrong. You just have to listen to what perspective they're coming from, what they're using as a criteria. It's just like the pound for pound list. If somebody has a certain criteria, you can't tell them they're wrong. They're utilizing this criteria to judge what you have. But then like I said, when you look at ratio of actually athletes competing in a certain sport, it's just like people complain about the Boston Celtics and basketball. Well, they say, yeah, well, they won 11 titles, but look how many teams it was in the league. So nowadays, when you move forward to win a title in this day's league with 30 teams and at least 18 of them being competitive, then you have to adjust for that different ratio, because there are more players in the league, more teams in the league, just like it's more boxing today worldwide than it was back then worldwide. So it was really, by ratio, probably just as equivalent in capturing one of those titles.
I want to Tank Nation real quickly. Like, I think everybody
Hold on, Untangible. Real quick, before you do that, respond to that, what I just said. I want to stick to that right quick, because this is an important conversation. I don't, especially on this channel, that like we had a blow up situation over this. And if we can understand perspectives here, that's why we have these discussions. We don't have these situations. So I hear what Tank is saying. We can get to that in a second, but like, let's stick to the context.
All right, go Battle. You're going first.
Well, I'm just saying that basically, I'm not saying they're going on for a certain criteria. I don't think that's what Intangible was going for. He was just saying that basically it's like this. The way boxing was sanctioned, it was made to where there was one champion per division. Now they made a bunch of smaller titles that you hold on to give you that sort of accolade without actually taking the actual belt, which is the one belt they had. Now it didn't start with 4 belts. It went into 2, then it went to 3, then it went to 4. Now it's almost like technically if you was in the Olympics in a 100-meter race and there was only one medal you could actually get. I'm not sure of the history of the Olympics. Somebody can probably tell me about it. I'm not sure the whole history of the Olympics, but it's like if they gave you only one trophy, and then over time they start giving you all the small little ribbons and stuff. I mean, yeah, they count for something. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that wasn't the actual goal. The actual goal was to get the trophy. The trophy was you was the best of the best. It couldn't be disputed. When you get one belt, it can be, because you're technically not.
Okay, but Battle, check this out. Okay, I know we have the 64 belts, but let's keep everything in perspective here. How many belts are recognized for undisputed in this era? Are all 64 belts recognized for undisputed in this era?
Yeah, pretty much. You got
No, they're not. No, they are not, bro. You can't have a interim champion belt and go get
no. If he's saying
undisputed, you can't have a silver belt and get undisputed.
No. If he's saying basically, if he's breaking apart the 4 belts per division, then yeah, you technically can. I mean, okay, how many videos out there in boxing?
4 times 4, bro. Only 4 recognized belts. So what's 4 times 4?
You mean 4 times 6? You mean 4? You mean 4 times 16? You mean 4 times 16?
The IBO. right? I mean, the WBO, the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF. So if you're saying that it's 4, what's 4 times 4?
You mean 4 times 16? It's 16 divisions in boxing, right? Like, isn't?
No. I'm not talking divisions. I'm talking belts here. I'm talking just capturing belts here.
Oh, just 16. 16.
Okay, 16 belts. So I'm saying 4 belts to be recognized. This 4 belt undisputed for the new age boxer. If they capture a belt and they say, okay, he's an official champion, and then you go back to the old school guys and they go back in the day, Mark, unravel. Yeah, you need to come up here too, because you and Intangible got that math on the belts and all of that shit. I don't really pay attention to all that because I can't stand the politics of boxing. But anyhow, so you have the new school guys that say, and let's keep this in perspective too. I'm trying my best to defend the new school area. I don't agree with this shit. I'm just trying to offer a different perspective, okay? So if they say that this is my champion and he won, how can you tell me that that's a 4th of the title when you have more guys competing for these titles?
More guys competing for these titles. I mean,
by ratio, bro. By ratio.
Even then, that wouldn't change the precedent on what the title, what the actual champion is. It's just more people. It's just more people have.
I mean, that's a fair point.
Battle. That's not the thing. Listen, if you I don't know how I can explain this. I think Intangible understand, but I don't think you get it.
It's like
hold on. Battle. If you have, let's just say you got 1 lollipop, right? And you got 8 fucking kids, right? For 1 lollipop. So 8 kids are competing for this 1 lollipop, right? Now you have a group of 56 kids. Is it fair that they only compete for 1 lollipop, or should they have more lollipops to compete for? Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I understand. Look, here's my thing though. Okay, so what the thing is, like you said, there's a lot more people in the sport, so they kind of break apart the titles to like give them a fair shake. It's almost like let's say there was 1 belt per division in modern day. If Usyk would have, let's say, won the tournament, they probably would have wanted to give him something for winning that tournament if he's not the actual belt holder. So that's what they do. That's the reason they spread out the belts. I get that reason, but that wouldn't dispute his fact that it's still 1/4 of the belt. Well, because you're still
battle rifle. It is disputing it, bro. It's the value, bro. It's the value. So you got to understand something. And you're saying he's not coming from the angle of criteria, but before you jumped on, that's exactly what we were talking about, and that's in his criteria of why he said it was wrong.
Not technically, D. Jefferson.
Listen, that's exactly what we're talking about. Okay, criteria. But what I'm saying is this: if he's saying that based on his criteria, only thing I'm giving you is the perspective. I'm not arguing it because I think that it's a good way for him to set his criteria up. And I told him that. What I'm saying is from the perspective of someone that would argue that, it's just what I broke down to you. How can you say that if you're going to say it's 1/4 of the title, then you're saying it's not worth what they won back then? Well, the new age guy's going to tell you you're damn wrong. It is worth what they won back then because
I mean,
people.
Wait.
Hold on, bro. It's more people competing nowadays than it was for them back then. Okay. That's just an argument. And why wouldn't you accept that?
Let me respond to this though, because you can say that yes, there are more people competing, as in people who have belts. But another circumstance you have to consider is
tangible. I missed that come through. Willie Williams with the super chat. Appreciate you, Willie Williams. He says, salute D. Jefferson, the speaking mind sports talk, family, boxing, basketball, football, MMA, power to mind. He covers it all. Love your channel, bro. You got my support. I appreciate you, Willie Williams. Appreciate that, bro. Go ahead, Intangible.
I mean, look, I think less people being able to compete for the belt makes the belt more prestigious, because in order to win a belt back then, an official belt, the undisputed belt, you had to beat the man. It wasn't like you could go fight the worst champion in the division. You had to beat the number one guy. You had to beat the guy who beat the man who beat the man.
Intangible. Let me give you a perspective here. So you have the Olympics, right? Right? So back in the day when Hitler was around doing all of the foolishness, and I'm not going to get into the history of the Olympics. You fast forward to nowadays, and they got X Games in the Olympics, and they put this game and that game and this competition in the Olympics. And you know why they do that? Because there are more countries involved, there are more people involved, so they want to give more people a chance to win medals. And the only thing that I'm trying to explain to you guys are perspective-wise, you have to understand if you have that many more people competing, it's probably good to open up so that now I don't agree with all of the other stupid belts they have. I'm just talking about the 4 belts to be recognized for championship. All of these other stupid belts, I'm not talking about those. And I also agree with you guys' perspective. I'm just trying to open the perspective here. If you have that many more people competing, maybe it's fair to have more belts. I know that it would be easier, and as a fan, I always say it would be great if it was like the UFC. I understand it would be easier, but I'm saying, how can you keep it fair? How can you make it fair with just your 8 belts that's in your criteria, with so many more guys worldwide competing? How can you make that fair? Explain that to me.
I mean, okay, so here's my thing. I understand that once you have a lot of bodies in your sport, they're going to want to, in a sense, give you kind of like, more alphabet titles. That's what alphabet titles come in. But it's almost like a game show. It's almost like if you were playing, essentially something like tag. If you know what tag is, it's basically a game show where people literally run around a course trying to tag each other. Now they have spots where the third person, the fourth person, the second person can still win money, even though they technically didn't win. But the winner of that is one person. That's the thing. So
battle. In this sport, don't nobody want no damn consolation prize, bro. No one wants no second, third, or fourth. You want to be a champion, bro.
That's my thing. They still get money.
Okay,
but the winner.
Going off topic. I asked a specific question here, and I don't think
that, no. Well, something like basically.
Is not answering the question, fam. The question is this: with your 8 belts, because basically you don't agree with or like the perspective that I'm coming from. So I ask you a question, simple, and you got to stay on this question, or let one of these 2 guys answer it. With your 8 belts and so many more guys competing, how do you make that fair? That's the question. Stick to that, or let Intangible or Mark go, especially Mark. Shit yet.
Maybe I'm a fan of more of the tournament style of boxing. They should do that, but since politics is so prevalent in the sport, that's probably not going to happen. But that should be a part of the sport. But I say if it was more tournament style, where people didn't have to wait as long for their shots, and you can actually sanction all the people to fight each other to where it's not going to be people that feel like they're left out, then that would be more fair.
Well, I think that in the case of trying to make things fair, trying to make things better, I think that, and there's no way this is going to happen because there will be too many hands in the pot, but the body should mandate that you fight the other champions before the guys actually in the top 10 rankings, because that would force the best to fight the best, the way the WBC and WBA used to do it in the 80s. Like I said, there's no way that's going to happen, but that would make things a bit better. But is it really correct that more boxers compete today than from back then?
I'm pretty sure, because the sport is more diverse. It wasn't as many countries, nowhere near as many countries competing back then. I'm not sure. Look, let me rephrase that. I would presume, because I cover multiple sports, so boxing is still boxing, and I get it. But I would presume that there's no fucking way that in 1892, as many people was competing in this sport as in 2020.
Yeah, but also
correct, bro.
Another thing to
we didn't even have the world population back then than we have now. Come on.
No, I don't think that. I don't know what the exact totals were, but
look, for a second, let's let in here because he has a lot of. It's not a lot of thinking going on. I don't know these things. I'm pretty sure he's more informed than all three of us. So let's let Mark talk on this a little bit.
I don't even know what the topic is. I'm just hearing people argue about criterias of something.
No, yeah. Well, check this out, Mark. Do you think that there were as many people competing back in the Harry Grab days and the days that intangible? You were here for the basic back and forth about old school, new school. So do you feel that there are as many competitors in the sport then now?
It depends. Are you talking about overall, or are you talking about one second? Are you talking about overall, or are you talking about at world level?
I'm talking about overall competitors.
Overall, no.
Right, and so so let's start with here.
Because nowadays we have way more domestic scenes worldwide, way more domestic level competition, lower end tier. At world level, there was more world caliber level fights going on.
Yeah, I get that, but that's a different discussion. That's why I didn't want to go down that route. But what I'm saying is this: if you in the sport in general, guys are going to get ambition to do what? Turn pro, get the money, and get the belts. So therefore, whether we're producing world level fighters or not, that's a different. I don't want to get on that because we're not producing world class fighters in this era. It's just not happening. But guys competing, these idiots coming in the ring thinking they could be world class fighters. It's plenty of them, bro. And getting through this field with the multitude of boxers and the politics, it is not easy to sift through all of that nonsense and capture one of these titles. So I think that someone coming from a new school perspective, not I, would argue that you can't say that my title is worth a fourth. That's what I'm saying. Just because they only had 8 belts. Yes, it was easier, but you can't tell me that my title was worth a fourth of what that title was. Because it's a different era. We have to respect that there's different eras. There's different ways of moving through boxing. There's different ways to try to capture that title. And you can't just simply say, well, that's only worth a fourth of what they were winning back then. And then tell me that that's correct. I'm not saying it's correct or incorrect. I'm just saying it's two perspectives.
There is.
Wrong thing. It's no right or wrong with it because it's different eras. That's my point that I'm coming with.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's so hard to differentiate. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you can go with the whole quarterly thing. You can say 4 belts today equals 1 belt back then, which would kind of be, it's kind of like, in a sense, kind of right to some extent. And the only reason why is you actually had to go through number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6 back then to get that title shot. Nowadays, you go through number 37, number 28, and you can be a world champion. And then there's forwarders. So how do you become the number 1 guy? You have to beat the other champions, right? But back then, there was one champion you had to beat. But to even get there, if you look at it, let's take Ray Robinson, for example, right? Just take him as a prime example of this. He beat Sami Anga, he beat Fritzy Zivic, he beat Marty Servo before he ever got a world title shot. He beat them multiple times. I think he had 5 Hall of Fame victories. He had 5, 6, 7 current, future, and former world champions, including Jake LaMotta, before he even won a world title. So he had to go through every guy pretty much who was rated in the top 10. I mean, a lot of people forget rankings were different, like in the 20s and 10s, etc. Because in the 20s it was predominantly done via like the publications rather than an actual sanctioning body, because there wasn't one. If anybody could tell me the name of the sanctioning body for the world title, I'd appreciate it, because there wasn't. If you then go into through the 22s onward with the NSAC and the NBA, they actually had a different way of ranking people. Like, for example, let's take 1947, right? So in 1947, the middleweight rankings, Graziano was champion at the end of December 47. 1, 2, 3, and 4, the rankings were Marcel Cerdan, Tony Zale, Tommy Roche, and Jake LaMotta. And that was considered champion logical contenders. But then there was also outstanding boxer rankings, which had number 1 Bert Littell, number 2 Dave Sands, number 3 Fred Apostoli, number 4 Charlie Borley, number 5 Steve Belois, and number 6 Radick. Yet some of those guys never got that opportunity to even fight for the world title, yet they were ranked number 1 through 6 as outstanding boxers and highly ranked, and they didn't get their opportunities, and the guys didn't actually have to fight them because there was a differentiated ranking. So how on earth do you make that fair and compare it to today? It's impossible. You can't do that.
You can't compare that. You can't compare that. And that's why, you know, some guys get in. I think if you get into the mindset of it being more discussion and stay away from, well, technically that's correct. If you stay away from those kind of phrases, you don't get these kind of blow up arguments. Because Battle, you have to understand, bro. I will say this: when you get into these discussions, first look for the perspective on, I can understand that, than to say that's incorrect. Because it's too easy to say that's incorrect. But then when somebody asks you to break it down, and just like I asked you an intangible, how do you make 8 belts fair? I mean, you guys gave me some ideas, but that's not really making it fair. That was ideas of what they could do with tournaments, but that ain't making it fair when you got 100 more guys competing for one title, or when you got 1,000 more guys competing for one title.
Well, you also have to take into account that if it was one belt, there would be one sanctioned body. So the fact of the matter is, it probably would be easier to not deal with all these.
Again, Battle, I explained that it would be easier, but saying that it would be easier is not saying that it would make it fair. See, boxing.
But is that?
Let me finish my statement. Boxing fans a lot of times don't equate the fact that things would be easier and to their liking that it would necessarily be fair to the athletes or to what's going on in the sport of boxing or for the people that's making money in this sport.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, when you come into the idea of fairness, right? Fairness, and there's more fighters on a global scale, right? But a lot of these fighters aren't actually good enough. Like, let's be real, at world level. Right. Like, take a Campo and Spence. There's no way that dude ever should have been a mandatory. No way in hell. Absolutely none. Guy, like, people will probably slate me when I start doing this. Arthur Spielka shouldn't be fighting for a world title. You know, he just shouldn't be. This shouldn't be happening. Back then, that didn't happen. Do you know what happened? If they were going to fight fighters on that level, they weren't sanctioned. They weren't called world title fights. World title fights were when you fought the best guys. Perceived by either. Huh?
The reason why, I mean, that's pretty simple. Rankings are bought and paid for, and they're all fake. There are some top 10 rankings where none of the people there have actually fought each other. Go ahead.
Most top 10 rankings, you have a lot of people who haven't fought each other. And that's the nature today. And there is. Huh?
Mark, real quick. AA Boxing and Blood said, how many Eastern Europeans fought for world titles in the 1950s?
Very few, none.
Johnny Jadick was one.
No. Intangible. We don't need a lesson on this. This is like 5, 10, 15, 20. The thing is this, Mark answered it perfectly. Very few.
Very few. Like, Intangible, you said Johnny Jadick, right?
Yeah.
You said Johnny Jadick. I can name you 8 people from Uzbekistan right now. 8 people from Uzbekistan who in the next 2 to 3 years are being touted to be world champions. From Uzbekistan. Let's go back to 1920. Tell me how many Americans in all of America could tell you that there was a country named Uzbekistan.
Probably very few.
Never mind the fact that there's going to be people fighting for world titles from that country, or that you have people from Azerbaijan, or you have other countries. Let's look at like let's look at it like Thailand, right? We've got Sorong Visoi. You know about Pong King Pecha when he came out during the 50s and 60s, well, 60s predominantly, and he became like Thailand's first world champion. Like he kind of paved the way for fighters to come through there. That's 60 years ago now. Like back, if you look at the 40s, you didn't have Thai fighters then. You didn't have those guys fighting at bantamweight, fighting against the likes of Jimmy Barry back in 1900 fucking splash. You didn't have Jimmy Wild having to go in there with dudes from Nicaragua because they didn't fight. Like Battling Shaw, he's Mexico's kind of like Mexico's first world champion as such. Battling Shaw, he's 1927, right? Look at how many Mexican world champions there is right now. Battling Shaw was a world champion after Harry Greb was. He's a world champion 40 years after John O'Sullivan was. 40 years.
Real quick, bro. Real quick. That guy, £5 super chat. What's good, D? Panel chat. Smash that like. Appreciate you, that guy. Appreciate that a lot, my man. Go ahead, Mark. Yeah. And real quick though, that's what I'm talking about. That's the perspective that I'm trying to open people up to. Again, I can't, if I comment on your video and I put something on your video, I'm not just putting it up there for fluff, for no reason, just to say, oh, hey, I'm your friend. Nah, if I put a comment up there, I mean it. So
I saw what you did there, dude.
I agree with your perspective, Intangible. Okay, it's not that, dog. It's just that if I'm gonna do my best to defend the modern day boxer, then the only thing that I can do is just offer perspective. And one thing about perspective, if it's backed with validity, it's hard to deny or not accept. You can't, you know what I mean? If somebody gives you an open perspective, it may not be something you agree with, but if they back it and it's valid, how can you just turn it down and say, no, well, it's still incorrect? You can't do that because they have valid reasons. And when you're going to have a lot of valid reasons when you start talking about old school, new school, when you start talking that battle, it can go on for hours, days, months, weeks, years. You know why? Because it has been. It's been going on for hours, days, months, weeks, and years. It has been.
I think a good question we should be asking is, you said, how would it make it fair for all the other boxers? I mean, is boxing supposed to be fair though?
No, I don't. And my thing is this. I was really trying to get you guys to understand that it's probably not possible to make it fair for many more competitors to be competing for, less. It's like, no, it's just like when you look at sports, like they open up playoff brackets and stuff. That's to give the other teams more opportunities because it's growing. If the sport is growing, you can't stay with one little opportunity. Like in basketball, you can't have a 4 playoff bracket anymore. You got too many teams. These teams are paying money, so the league expands. So you have to have a 16-team bracket. You can't just have 8 belts no more. You can't.
Yeah.
There's no way to make it fair. That was really why I wanted to say, well, it's not really a way to make it fair. And then we wouldn't have had to go through all of that. But y'all didn't want to say that shit. So I just had to keep talking, bro. But it's, to me, my opinion on it is it's not really a way to make it fair. The only thing that you can do is switch things up to account for how the sport has expanded. But to just try to keep it the same as it was, because that's how it was back then. You can't do that. As the sport expands, you have to expand everything. You have to find better ways to do it. You don't have to have 80 sanctioning bodies, 50,000 promoters, and 1 million belts. No, you don't have to do that. But you do have to expand the opportunity to win. It also has to expand with the sport. You cannot keep it. Well, they just need 8 belts. Yeah, it would be great for all of us. We would fucking love it. But that's not being realistic.
See, if the sanctioning bodies weren't all fake, I wouldn't mind minor belts to sort of help account for a lot of these dudes.
Intangible, you got to get off of that shit too, bro. Because boxing has gone through a lot of travesties. Not just the bullshit that you see today. And you always go through that fake. Man, what about the Teamster time? Do you know why the fucking IBF and the WBO is even here? Because of all bullshit that was happening with the WBA and WBC.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so I'm saying you can't keep rambling on about the politics and the bullshit. It's always been bullshit in this sport, bro.
I'm just saying,
that's not a factor to say it's not fair because there's 8 belts. You see what I'm saying? No, that's not a factor, bro.
Well, let me wrap with intangible real quick, right? Which would you prefer, intangible, right? Would you like to go back to the era of the color line where black fighters couldn't fight for titles? Would you like to go into the 1930s through 40s where you had outstanding fighters not get title shot once again because they were black? Would you rather go into the 60s where titles were stripped from you because of politics? Would you like to go through the 50s where the mob are the people who are picking who's fighting for titles and influencing the state athletic commissions? Would you like to go through the 70s and 80s and go into the 80s with the IBF committing fraud and tax evasion and money laundering, etc.? Would you like to go into the 90s when Don King himself was scrupulating and ripping fighters off at the highest level of all facets of money? Or what way would you like to see this sport run? Pick it.
That isn't my point.
Paying off judges and shit, you know what I mean?
That isn't my point. I'm not denying that there isn't corruption or maybe different forms of corruption across different eras. I'm not denying that at all.
You're not denying that. You can't keep crying about fake belts, bro, because you always bring that up.
I mean, well, if we can sit here all day about
battle. I'll let you go next. You can't keep crying about fake belts, bro.
But you just asked me.
Hold on. If you know that there was corruption throughout the eras, then I'm just saying, listen, I'm coming from somebody that will debate you, dog, and I wouldn't debate this old school versus new school. I'm just coming at you as somebody that would debate you, okay? Because I do that well. So you can't cry about something that existed through the era that you're trying to protect, is my point. You cannot cry about that.
But you just asked me the question of how do you want to create a more even playing field, and how do you want to get more fighters shine because there's more people in the sport? Right. You just asked me that question. I said, if there somehow became a more orderly style of ranking fighters for belts, I think minor belts can help with that. Not as many bigger belts, not as many international belts like the IBF, WBO, and all that kind of stuff, but less belts with more minor belts to help fighters grow in the rankings to, I guess, compensate and help complement the fact that there are more fighters and more people getting into the sport.
That's a fact. Oh, yeah. Well, that's true, too. But I was just reading the comments. Scott Brown said, I would have picked Collar, but I stopped following. Yeah, I picked him. I knew Collar was going to beat that kid up. Mr. Two Hands said, yes, it's supposed to be, but it's real life. I've been designed to accept corruption for what it is. But I say, fuck all that. And see, that's the thing. And that's why I wanted to put that up. Like, I'm with that, too. It's like, that's what I do, Mr. Two Hands. I'm like, man, because it exists. It exists. We can sit here and moan about it, but it exists. So let's talk about the things that are happening, the corruption. Let's talk about how to acquire these belts. But I'm not going to complain that there was, they got fake belts or fake rankings. Well, it was other things that were fake in other eras, like wives and kids being threatened if they don't fucking take a dive in the fight.
Oh, I know that.
That shit is going on right now.
I know that. I was just asked. All you did was just ask me, how can we make this better? And how can we...
I also got on you about whining about fake belts, because when you respond, if I'm defending the new school, when you keep responding to me and talk about, but these fake belts, that's how I'm gonna come at you, bro. Why you keep bringing up fake belts? That's why I came at you about that, because this is what you gotta understand. That's what this discussion is about, Intangible. If you can understand that, maybe I shouldn't keep bringing up fake belts because it's really irrelevant, then when you go into these discussions with someone else that is really debating you on this, because I'm not really debating you, I'm trying to give you open mind on this. If you go into these discussions not thinking on that level that you're putting anything or too much on corruption, then you may not get as much feedback. That's how, when you get more feedback, that's how you get into arguments, into battles. But when you have more understanding, that's how you have boxing discussions. And we don't need the bullshit on this channel, or I feel like Mark's channel, or Johnny Boys, or BDA's, or anybody else's channel that we had here. That's why I'm having this discussion, because I need the old school guys and the new school guys to have an open perspective. And if you have a perspective like, no, that's incorrect, or you have a perspective as, you know, corruption, that can lead to all of this back and forth, which is both of them is irrelevant, because there's no right or wrong in old school. And Mark is doing a great job of helping me explain this. There's no right or wrong. It's difficult. So you can't say anything's incorrect. But also in the perspective of where you can't keep bringing up the corruption side of it, because corruption has existed throughout the sport.
You see,
well, that's kind of making it seem like, well, you can't bring up the corruption because corruption was just as bad back then. I mean, yeah, we can still bring up corruption.
Of course, when you're arguing the validity of a fighter, bro. Let's keep it in perspective. When we start talking about, yeah, this guy, that guy. So when you arguing the validity of a fighter, and you start going into fucking corruption and these things, you're going down a rabbit hole that doesn't need to be discussed. Let's stick to the things that Intangible was talking about earlier, the facts, the accomplishments, the belts won, these things like that. But when you start talking about, yeah, well, we can't say that because we know he was paid off in the fight, and then we start crying about the fucking corruption and politics, we go down a rabbit hole that you don't need to go down, because we're really just comparing fights.
Not so much when you're talking about belts, though. That when you're talking about,
I hear you, bro, but you won't really hear first and foremost for the blow up argument we had on the channel. So I don't really think you understand where I'm coming from.
No. Yeah, it's some things that's just not. You're not going to come to a full conclusion. I'm just saying that.
But I'm not looking at what I can't do, bro. I'm not looking. That's negative.
Of course. I'm putting it where it is. I'm not saying you're doing it.
I'll let Jay Blues jump in here, bro, because I don't need that right now, dog.
Look. This is the thing. I'm not. When I say stuff, I'm not saying I'm accusing you of doing it. I'm just saying it is what it is. Some things are just is what it is. When it comes to some things, there's some things that we're going to look at with a compromise. Some things we're going to be like, well, I'm a one belt holder, but I'm not undisputed, but I should be getting a fair shake. I'm going to be like tough cookies, man. I know it's hard, but you know, there's people that's been undisputed before. They've done it. You can go through the same thing.
Do me a favor. You're a really smart guy. I mean, I can't always say that. Why don't you offer some things that we can look at and we can agree upon? Think real hard. Do that for me. And we'll continue to keep this discussion going. And I want you, when you come out, it's going to be something we can agree upon, okay? Because I just feel like you coming with that vibe of wanting to keep disagreeing, but just hear me out, bro. I'm trying to deal with something that happened on this channel the other day, and I don't need the, you know what I mean? I'm trying to open perspective, not close them. That's all I'm trying to tell you. So, Mark, go ahead. You was getting ready to say something too, though.
Yeah. The whole fake champion thing, I don't call any of these guys fake champions. Because I've actually got my own rankings per division. It's not 10 or 15 fighters either. Like some people, I've got rankings of 50 fighters per division. My whole thing though is I call most of these guys either unified titleists, world titleists, or undisputed champions. That's where I come from. That's not me calling them fake. That's not me disregarding them. That's what they are. They are a world titleist. Being a champion means you're number one. You've proven that. I can call you the WBO world champion. I can call you the WBA world champion. I cannot call you, if you've one belt, the middleweight champion of the world. I can call you the WBA middleweight champion of the world. I can call you the IBF middleweight champion of the world. If you've all of the belts, I can call you the undisputed middleweight champion of the world. Which means there's no arguments. That's how I go. That's a better way of doing it than saying, oh, this guy's a fake. Because if you say that this dude's a fake and this guy's a fake because of this, this, and this, well, okay. But if you went through every other opponent of another guy, are you sure you can't find things that can correlate into how other fighters got there, like the champion before, or how he got his championship status? You know, like there's a lot of things that go into it. And then when you go through a linear line or a vacancy or whatever, how did this person get this? Is it because of corruption or is it because they actually are good enough? I mean, Danny Garcia and Sean Porter fighting for a vacant title. Was that corruption, or is it because that was actually fair enough because they are two of the best guys available to fight for a vacant title who didn't have a championship when Keith Thurman vacated? But then you can look at the IBF and saying, well, Carlos Ocampo fighting the mandatory position. How on earth is that fair? Well, it's fucking crazy. But also remember, Errol Spence was also a mandatory himself. And that was a very hard mandatory. So he got that position. Did he fully earn it? Did he go out there and beat Danny Garcia and Sean Porter to earn that? No, but he did beat Sean Porter afterwards. His next fight may be Danny Garcia. So it's whether you want to say that the title reign is made equally to begin with as to those in a prior era, or if you want to say, well, what they can do during their career. Because a lot of it is like, this guy's a fake. Maybe to you right now, is he a fake when his career ends? What if he goes and becomes a two-way unified champion, undisputed? What if he is a lineal? What if he makes 14 defenses? I mean, you don't know. So that's just my thing. I just prefer to call them all titleists till there's one champion.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Sporting advantage. Yeah, man. Yeah. I think Cap says Berto got elevated to mandatory against Mayweather. That may have been paid for, as an example. May have been. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, all of those alternate belts that they have in today's era, there's no way to justify that nonsense. They need to get rid of those things. That type of shit is where, I cross the line. Like, with these new age guys, you holding some interim belt or something, man, I don't want to hear anything about that belt. Whatever belt that sanctioning body has that's recognized for unification, to me, that's the only belt that matters. I don't care which one they want to call it. But it should be one belt for that, where you can go fight the other champion and unify just one belt. All the belts that they have are absolutely meaningless to me. I don't care nothing about no international, no silver, no diamond, no Mayan or interim. To hell with all of that, bro. That's foolery. That's complete foolery. And that's only in place for sanctioning fees, as far as I'm concerned. That's all that shit is about. So if when you guys come with arguments about those type of belts, I mean, you can't do like Tank David.
Do people argue about those type of belts?
Man, please. Come on.
Like the diamond, the silver, the regular, the interim. Do people argue about that?
Man, look, I hear
maybe casuals do.
Yeah. I mean, but that's mostly most of the time people we have to set people straight. Who are we setting straight? Casuals. Because again, I mean, and then like look at the Tank Davis situation. He comes up and he beat Gamboa for this candy belt.
Can I ask a question? Are certain casuals saying that like interim world champions and regular champions are valid world champions?
Nah, but more or less I'm more getting on this damn WBA and the super and regular and all of this.
Yeah. So let's just look at it like this.
Super duper champion.
Let's look at it like this. Between interim belts, right? Between the interim world champion, the regular world champion, and the four main ones, right? Of the main sanctioning bodies. There's 17 weight divisions. Yeah. All of them can have an interim title. So that's 68. And you can have 68 interim world champions. Technically. You can have 68 world champions. So 68 plus 68 is what? 136. Then you can have 17 regular champions. So it's like 153 world champions. Like, that's crazy, man. That's crazy, dog. Like, you can have 68 plus 85. Mad.
That's madness. So many.
You can have 153 people from interim regular to world championship status, all with the title world champion.
But now you play all of these divisions, though, right? So you should have a champion for each division.
You should.
You should. You should have a chance. I mean, I understand that they spread out divisions, and a lot of that shit is for safety reasons too. But it still should be a champion for each division. And again, I don't agree with all of these belts, man. I don't agree with all of these sanctioning bodies. Yes, it would be easier if we had one sanctioning body, but even if we had one sanctioning body, then you still only condense those numbers. You divide it by 4, right? So you still have a fucking ton of belts out there.
You do. D, can I ask you a question? Like, this is who was the NFL who was the NFL American football champions last year?
Last year, the fucking put Mahomes in those kids, man. The Chiefs. The Chiefs.
Okay, for the Chiefs. Yeah. Okay, who's the light heavyweight champion of the world in boxing? Who's the light heavyweight? Huh?
You don't have the. You have better BF. You have.
Who was which country is the current world champions in soccer? France, right? They won the last World Cup.
Right.
Okay. So, this is me. Let's just say I'm a complete casual. Oh, yo, I used to watch boxing back in the 90s and the 80s. I really liked Pernell Whitaker, right? He was a great lightweight. He was the champion. He was the lightweight champion of the world. He was the lightweight champion. Who's the lightweight champion right now?
Right, you don't know. I mean, you got multiple lightweight champions.
Okay, what are their names?
Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko, and Haney.
Yeah.
Haney's the easiest name of those for me to remember. Keep him with this is just a social experiment, right? I'm just a casual fan, right? Haney, that's the easiest name. How did he become a champion? That's the easiest one to remember. That's the easiest one for me to follow. How did he become a champion?
By email.
What? There's a bit of a problem there, isn't there?
Yes.
I don't know who the world champion is. This guy became a champion via email? What?
Well, email. Two-time email champion.
Because if you break it down like that and you think about it, most casual boxing fans watch other sports. There's an end to a meme. World Series champion, NBA champion, Premier League champion. You know who the number one is in their own divisions, right? I can't turn around to you in this sport and ask you who's the world champion.
Well, you can't do it. Well, yeah, you can. Yeah, I know. This is a shame. It's a shame, man. And
that will drive off a lot of newer fans because they know who every year they know who's gone. They have an idea of how it's going to rectify itself. You have playoffs, right? In a lot of your sports, you guys have playoffs.
Yes.
All
yeah,
right.
we got playoffs.
Yeah, so like let's say I watch a lot more soccer than I watch of American sports, right? So I watch UK football, soccer. So like let's say the FA Cup, you have the quarterfinal, the semi-final, and the final. You have the Champions League, the quarterfinal, semi-final, whatever. You go through rounds in a round robin based on seeds, and then you get drawn against random teams in a randomized draw, and you pretty much have to beat all them to get to the final. In the Champions League in Europe, which is the continental thing of football, it starts out like you have 32 teams, or is it 64? I'm not sure. Let's just go 32. You have soccer. You have 8 groups of continental. This is this is European football, the UEFA Champions League. You have 4 teams, right, per group. You have 8 groups, A through G. Or something like that, or A through H. I don't know the fucking letters of the alphabet off by heart. A through H. Whatever. Anyway, they all end up in this fucking pot, right? And they get drawn out. You have seeds 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a seeded pot of teams 4, 3, 2, and 1, right? So you have a number 1 seed versus a number 2 versus a number 3 versus a number 4, and it goes across like that for all of the groups. The 2 top teams in each group, based on points, they all play each other twice, so they play a total of 6 games each. The 2 teams at the top of that go through into the next round. The team at the top gets a team who came second in a different group, and they play each other twice, and it goes like that until the final. And that's how you know who the number 1 is that year. In boxing, we don't have that. We don't have anything like that.
All right. And that's the problem. That's the big problem in boxing. Yeah, I think you better chill. You don't have no wrench no more. I just put it in the chat. If you get the axe, it's all on you, dog. You gotta stop all that trolling. No, man. Well, uh, what is? Let me ask you this. Intangible. Like, what are some of your issues that you have with new school guys coming to you? Or Mark, you too, because you get this all the time. You go back and forth with some of these idiots, but you come from a better perspective, so it's easier for you to talk to them. Plus, you intimidate a lot of people because of your boxing knowledge. But intangible, I want you to answer this first. What bothers you most when you hear these guys defending the new school and they come at you about old school fighters? What perspective that bothers you the most?
They don't know anything about older fighters.
Okay,
That's my biggest issue too, ignorance. They'll say this guy's the greatest. This guy is better than this guy because of all of the things he's done. Then they'll say, "Well, what's this guy done for you to know that?" And they can't give me an answer. That bothers me.
I think people who are like that should, I think they should at least speak within their realms of knowledge. Like, this guy is the best fighter of the years that I've studied or the people that I've researched. Of course, that's kind of hard for them to do, but I mean, look, when you compare fighters to all eras, you have to be sort of welcoming and understanding to the fact that you're going to open up dialogue for disagreement and people who know more than you.
Yeah.
Well, you know something. That's something that's interesting.
Y'all know what's like? Oh, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, Intangible said you're going to be talking to people who know more than you about that era. I mean, I can pick people I know who know way more Intangible about the minimum weight division. I know people who know the minimum weight division in full, right? They know way more about the minimum weight division than you do, but you know more about Henry Armstrong than they do. You know what I mean? It's not simple just because you know history. You know a lot more about things than other people. Yeah. The sport isn't just on history. I mean, the ignorance thing does bother me. It does bother me when people just come at you and they don't know what they're talking about something, and they act like they do.
Right. It's just stupid, bro. It's stupid. It's like, shout out to Jay Blues. He on the panel now. Jay Blues is like me. Like, and Mark, I've done on your channel or Librarian's channel or Beats when I'm on the panel with you guys. The same thing that Jay Blues did here yesterday. So we were going down fantasy fights and stuff like that, right? And guys was just answering the question who they thought would win. So we got to a couple of fights and got to Jay Blues. He was like, man, I'm going to have to pass because I don't know anything about this guy. And so everybody on the panel was like, respect, bro, respect. Even people in the chat. So when you having a discussion, if you don't know, say you don't know and shut the fuck up. Like, pass the mic, bro. Don't sit there and start rambling on like you fucking know. And I can understand why that can, kind of get annoying. But I was just going to say the funny thing is if you guys don't realize that, it happens in the new era too. People come and do that shit now. Like, well, I'll sit here and say, man, Demetrius Andre is not going to beat Deverenchenko for whatever reason. I can say something like that. And they'll go, no, you don't know about Demetrius Andre. Well, who has Deverenchenko fought? Well, I don't know. Where the fuck, how are you going to tell me that he can't beat Demetrius Andre then? You see what I mean? So it happens now too. Like, even within this very era, ignorance is bliss. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And usually people come in to argue with you, and we can tell within the first 2 or 3 comments that they don't know a goddamn thing.
El Jefe, man, look, bro, I don't really know anything. Please tell me who Bob Barbados Joe Walcott is.
Why are you entertaining that fool, man? You know why he's in the chat, not on the panel, Intangible? Just for that reason. So ignore him. Jay Blues, what's up, bro? Why don't you weigh in on this? What you think? The old school, new school battle? Offer some perspective on this, man. Oh, Jay Blues, I don't know, he might still be in the back. Jay Blues, you there? Yeah, but I don't know, man. Let me see. Oh, LFA, why are you trolling the chat, man? I see 100 more of your chats than anybody else's. Guido in the building. What's good with you, Guido? South Croy. LFA, stop trolling. Get this smoke. I'm surprised you ain't jump up here and weigh in on this, man. What you think about the old school versus the new school? You know, Smoke got a lot of depth knowledge. Smoke been watching boxing for a long time too. He know about a lot of the older guys and stuff too. A lot more about the history of boxing than I do. I tell you that. All three of these guys know more about the history of boxing than I do. Mark, Intangible, and Get This Smoke.
Yo.
All right, there he is. What's up, Jay? No, I was telling you to weigh in on this old school versus the new school. All right.
I mean, people can say about strength and conditioning and that new age fighters have muscles that old school fighters didn't. Like they work out differently, so therefore they're going to be stronger and faster. That's true to a point, but old school fighters had to do things in regular life that, like manual labor, that new age fighters probably wouldn't come in contact with. So for all them new muscles that they would have that the old fighters wouldn't have, the old fighters would have new muscles in different places that these new fighters wouldn't have. Like watching Michael Spinks train and like redesign his frame to fight Larry Holmes. The same way, the same thing would have been done by working down the docks by somebody like Sam Langford or goddamn, Unrivaled could rifle off 10, 15 names, but Jack Johnson, old school people, like they had to live differently.
Harry Wills, etc.
Oh, Harry Wills, Jesus Christ. Dude, they lived a different life, so they were tougher people. There's parallels on both sides, though. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's where I think that the disconnect comes a lot of time, you know, and that in ignorance as well. I think ignorance is probably the biggest part of it, but just lack of open perspective, because everybody wants to prove their point, right? Everybody wants to say you're wrong and I'm right, you know, and sometimes it's one of those things where, well, it's actually no wrong or right. It's apples and oranges, but people will argue for days about the damn apples and oranges, and you can't compare them.
Let me ask Unrivaled, because I know, or Intangible, because they got extensive fucking old school knowledge. Did they wrap hands in the days of Jack Johnson and Jack Dempsey? Because it looks like the way, like everything was about position and form. They always had their wrists in a certain, like they didn't just swing wildly, bro. It's almost as if they knew they could break their hands more easily. Did they wrap hands back then?
Not everybody did. Some people did.
Wow.
Because I know I saw Joe Louis like with hand wraps before gloves, so it was at least in the 30s.
One of the main guys who did back in the way old school days, and this is why Joe Louis did it, is actually Jack Blackburn. Jack Blackburn always wrapped his own hands, and he trained Joe Louis. And he was a great fighter as well.
Yeah, I don't know too much about him. I know in the movie with James Earl Jones, they always talk about him fighting Joe Gans. Talk about Blackburn fighting Joe Gans.
Yeah, everyone. Blackburn doesn't get enough credit as a fighter. Dude,
he fought everyone.
Yeah. But Billy Roble said old equal more fighter and new equal more talk. Hey, that's something I can appreciate there, Billy Roble. They did a hell of a lot of fighting back in the day. That's one thing I was saying earlier in this live, that the new school, the new era don't like to hear that, man. But that's just the fact, bro. You got very few guys now fighting 4 or 5 fights a year. You got very few guys doing that. Back then, 4 or 5 fights, that was low activity. You know what I'm saying? That was low activity. So when they start talking on those levels, well, these guys fought this guy, turned around and fought this guy, 2 days later fought that guy, you know, they don't like to hear that, because their fighters are not going to do that type of thing. Not even close.
Harry Greb went 46-0 in 1 year.
Jesus.
And had about 80 rounds against Hall of Famers.
And those weren't 10-round fights. Those weren't 12-round fights. Some of them were 25-round fights, right?
No,
some were 20.
Very few were 20.
Still, that's insane.
Go that far. Somebody was
Yeah,
knocked the fuck out.
yeah, them 20 rounders, they sort of started to stop around the early 1910s.
Yeah. But prior to that, man, all of those death matches, well, that's the so-called shit. I ain't gonna start speaking on no rumors and shit. But anyway.
And they fought in the morning, right? Most of those fights were in the fucking sun. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that? Y'all ever see that movie Digstown with Lou Gossett Jr.?
Mhm.
I like that movie, man. What was that dude's name? Billy Ray something.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, that movie. That reminds me of the old days. We used to train out in the barn and all of that type of stuff. Now they got gyms and all type of high tech equipment. That's an argument too that a lot of guys in the new school bring. That is this an ego trip, D? There's a lot of information to retain about sport of boxing. I give props to anyone who has a lot of knowledge. No, it's not an ego trip, bro. It's just boxing talk. It takes time to learn and retain. It does, bro. It does. It takes plenty of time, you know. And that's why I like I said, when I get around Mark and Tangible and Beats and those guys, I listen up. Now, Johnny boy, what's good with you, fam?
It's good morning or good afternoon. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Good.
What's cracking?
Yeah, the boxing game has changed. It hasn't compared fighters from different yeah. I mean, it has changed, like what all sports have in different eras. Some change for the good, some change for the bad. Most people that's in love with the older eras, they just feel like it's changed for the bad. But it was tougher times back in the day. You talk about guys being thirsty and guys being hungry. You got to understand something. When there's less money out there to be made, and getting in the ring and fighting and winning is the only way you can feed your family, that gives you a hell of a lot more incentive. You know what I'm saying? And that was the case for a lot of these guys. It was fight or nothing. So you going in the ring with that mentality, and you're going to have a lot of hunger to win.
That's why I ain't got no sympathy for Ryan Garcia, D.
But see, that's what I'm saying, Johnny boy. This is, and I'm glad you're here because you I was trying to play devil's advocate, but that's what I'm saying. The perspective on it that I'm giving, and I understand what you're saying about Ryan Garcia is not in the age of these guys that you admire, where like the Manny Pacquiao, one of your favorite fighters, where his fucking dad killed his pet dog and they ate it. That type of shit. Ryan don't have to go through that. Even before boxing, he had this model type face and all of these freaking people follow him on Instagram. He can make plenty of money just messing around there. So he's not going to starve. When you got a guy like Manny Pacquiao who's malnourished coming into the fucking sport, then he's fighting to survive, bro. And when you're in the ring to fight to survive, you can't really these kids in this era that have more things afforded to them, and it's not as something they're utilizing to survive off of. You can't really expect, in my opinion, you can't expect them to have that type of hunger and desire. And what I'm saying is when certain fans don't see that, they get highly offended. But there's certain factors that you have to consider of why certain guys were hungrier. I mean, it's the same thing in all sports. Like in fucking basketball, these kids walk on the court with 10 times the endorsement deal than they do the contracts on the team. They got the medal. Look, man, I play on Saturday if I feel like it. That type of shit. Because they making $20 million off of Nike and $2 million off of Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Man, D, man, it's different mentalities, bro. It's good afternoon to everybody, man.
I mean, you
salute
don't know
tomorrow.
about either one of them.
Don't start them up, because I don't.
Yeah, man, I'm just talking boxing, bro. Like, come on, man.
Go ahead,
yeah, as I was saying, it's different mentalities, bro. It's like it's like any other person you meet at a job, bro. Some people have a hood mentality. They can work. They're all about that money. They're always willing to do overtime, bro. And that kid from the suburbs, bro, that he just wants to get over his shift. He always has a bad attitude, and it's just different mentalities, bro. So that's why I respect an old school fighter, bro. But science and technology, especially in the 60s and 70s, changed the sport of boxing. So I have a great question for y'all. How do you divide modern boxing to old school boxing? Where's the crossing line? Where would you guys put it? What year or what decade?
For me,
1963.
I was just gonna say for me, Ali, 60. Yeah.
I think for me, I would say there would be 3 divisions. I wouldn't say 1. I would say 63, and then the 60s, but then from the 60s to like 2000, those guys get their own era.
Yeah, the WBC came around during, I think, 1963, the Emil Griffith times. So I'd say around like the Floyd Patterson, Sonny Liston eras of heavyweights is probably the change.
WBC was around in 62. Intangible. It was fully recognized on February 14, 63.
If somebody sounds like they're walking around a fucking Walgreens over there, somebody needs to mute this shit.
Yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, whoever got noise in the background, mute. But
Fefe in his American car has his radio on.
Oh, okay. Well, my thing with the from the 60s to like the 2000s, bro, I can't even put these guys in this era. Like I said, I can't even put them on the level of the guys from the 60s to the, to the 2000s, man. I can't. Because those guys were, see, when Johnny Boy talks about hunger, right, and desire, dedication, like, let's not get this twisted. I'm not saying that because these guys have more things afforded to them, they got to be like Tank Davis getting fat in between freaking fights, clubbing and all of that. No, they should have a level of dedication to the sweet science, to keeping themselves fit in between fights and that type of stuff. So I'm not excusing that behavior. I'm just talking about just the level of desire. I do feel like they still should be dedicated, and you have guys like that. Crawford is like that. He's never out of shape in between fights. Wilder's never out of shape in between fights. The fucking Charlos are not. Well, Jamal's not fighting anyone, but he's not fat and nasty in between fights. He stays in shape. It's a lot of guys that still stay in shape in between fights. So when you have guys in this era that's not doing that, that's the type of level of dedication and stuff I'm talking about. That's inexcusable. But to go all out like the fucking Rocky in the Woods and all of that shit, man, you're not getting guys to do that type of stuff these days because it's too much afforded to them. And like El Jefe said, finally he said something that makes some damn sense. The technology, bro. There's better ways to get physical training more efficiently with less of that stupid effort, like chopping
trees. Strain.
Right? It's good to chop trees. Okay, that's old school training, but you don't have to fucking chop trees anymore. You could get more efficient training than going out there with a fucking axe. So
yes,
those type of things have to be accounted for.
Yeah, that's a great comparison also, because like doing those type of workouts, they're great workouts, bro, but you could injure your back. There's so many injuries you could get from old school workouts, man. So technology has really changed the game. And another thing I want to say, bro, is I hate when people like I was watching a video where they're saying the greatest lightweights and all that situation, or welterweights, bro, and they bring up these fighters from the 1800s, bro. Like, we can't really do that for the people that are historians and all that situation. You can't really do that, bro. That's like a criminal act. It's unnecessary and it's.
Let me ask you a question. What would be the discussion if they brought him up? Like, give me an example. Like, what would you be talking about? And then somebody brings up the 1800 or 1900 guy. Like, what would
First of all, there's no film. There's no film on them. There's very little footage.
Yeah, Tangible. Yeah, get them, bro.
Hold on for a second. Guys, chill. Okay. I'm saying, what would you be discussing? I'm not saying what's your argument. If you're discussing a lightweight, you said I hate when I'm discussing the lightweight, and some guy comes in with the guy from the 1800s. What would be your discussion? What would you be talking about at the time? And then they come in.
First of all, I'll think they're ignorant, bro. Because how can you compare somebody you never seen fight? There's very little footage of them.
It's
All you
not
go
what
is
he's
by.
asking, bro.
No, I know. LFA, do you understand what the question that I'm asking you?
No, bro, put it in a different perspective, bro, because I'm not really understanding what you're saying.
Okay. If we're talking about Chocolatito, right? You and I are talking about Chocolatito, and then somebody jumps in. Say we're talking about how he uses his feints or how many fights he won. What would be your discussion when you get angry when somebody comes in and talks about the 1800s? What would you be discussing with me? What would we be talking about? You said it makes you angry when I'm talking about new age boxing and somebody comes in and talks about the 1900 and 1800 guys. Well, what would be?
Now I understand it, bro.
Thank you.
Well, it's offensive, first of all, bro, because you're trying to discredit the modern fighter. So does that answer your question? Or
Yeah.
Hey, man, look.
That answers it perfectly.
The only
yeah, bro, I don't understand the question, bro. You put it real difficult, bro. It's like almost doing a test and shit, bro.
The times where I would actually bring up an old fighter in that context is when somebody says that somebody from a more new era is the greatest of all time. And if they aren't, and there's somebody older that I think is better than them, I will state that I disagree with them and I think this guy is better. And I have the right to say that, and I don't feel like that's disrespectful at all. If somebody says that, like what Johnny did, he stated that Roberto Duran is the greatest lightweight of all time. I disagreed and stated it was Benny Leonard. Is that an issue to you?
Yes, that's an issue because you don't have facts behind that, bro. And you're trying to discredit Johnny Boy, which Johnny Boy has he has great points on why Duran is the best lightweight, bro. When you don't. And I don't even agree with Johnny Boy.
All right, well, that's cool. That's cool. Now, here's the thing, though. Neither side can say that. That's why we're having this discussion. Because it's like comparing apples and oranges almost. You can plead your case and you can utilize your criteria and what it takes for you to consider a guy here. And he can plead his case and say what he considers it take. But neither of you guys can prove anything, Al Jefe. You can't tell him he can't prove it because you couldn't either. You'll never see your guy in the ring with his guy. You can't watch the footage of his guy the same way he can't watch the footage of his guy. Therefore, you can't determine the level of competition that your guy is going to get in the ring with. So you can throw these charges at him and say, well, you can't prove it. Well, the facts of the matter is you can't either. And for that point, this is why we need to stop having these silly arguments about it. Understand, well, okay, I see what you're saying. I don't agree, but this is why I'm saying this. And then maybe come to a point where you agree to disagree. But you don't hate the fact that he's bringing up an old school guy and valid points about why he would be considered the greatest of all time. It's nothing to hate about that. And that's why I was asking you, what would you be discussing? Because if you're having a discussion and there's validity in bringing up an older fighter, then what is there to get mad at? There's nothing to get mad at. And see, if we can understand that, then again, we can start having more boxing discussions instead of blow out silly arguments that's pointless.
No, I could see it, bro, because I have a process.
Hold on. I was just gonna say.
What's up? Go ahead, Johnny Boy.
I was just gonna say I just ran out to take a tap of smoke. What are we talking about? Comparing guys with no film to guys with film?
No, we're not. We're talking about why certain things in this discussion. When we talk about old school and new school,
bro.
Hold on, Johnny. Let me finish.
Oh, my bad.
He's telling you what the topic is. The topic of today's discussion is when we discuss old school and new school, right? We try to come to a common ground here and determine the things that we should not be arguing about, because some things you cannot compare, and both sides need to accept it. The guys that lean toward the old school or the guys that lean toward the new school, we have to come to an understanding that it's a lot of things that we just have to sit here and agree to disagree on because certain things can't be proven as both sides say.
Yo, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Just one quick thing. When it comes to music, you can look at the classical masters from the 1700s, Bach, fucking Wagner, Mozart. You don't really know how good they are, though. All you have left is their work, literally their records. You don't even have like audio recordings of it. You can't actually experience them. All you have is their work.
Right. Yeah, that's a fact. It's nothing like watching. I don't know if people go to symphonies and I used to play the drums, the snare, but it's nothing like listening to music live, bro, than hearing it on a CD or it's a whole different experience, bro. I'll tell you that right now. Totally.
Better yet, hearing it from the originator, hearing it from the original source, because you can listen to Mozart's Symphony in G all day, but it's not the original composition. It's not the original mind that it came from. You know what I mean? It's so recycled over and over and over again.
Right. No,
you can't really compare music to an art form, bro.
It's the analogy, dog. It's the analogy. If you don't understand the analogy, don't speak on it. Because
also let me give a shout out to Boxing Monster, bro, because I'm about to have some Pollo Regio, bro. Shout out to Pollo Regio, man. Shout out to Oak Cliff. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, man. We just can't
bring up that incredibly relevant.
Tangible, Johnny.
Yeah.
You go after Johnny. Go ahead, Johnny.
I know. I was just gonna say, man. You can't compare them. Not dudes from that long ago. I'm not saying they're any better or any worse. They just can't compare them. It's different eras, dog. Motherfuckers don't fight like that. It's impossible. You can't do it in no sport. You can't compare fucking Sammy Sosa to Babe Ruth, bro. You can't compare fucking Tom Brady to Sid Luckman. You understand? Like,
not even.
Yeah. You can't do it. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Because for one, and I'm not, like I say, I'm not saying one's worse or better than the other, but you just can't compare them.
Well, Johnny, what kind of ticks you off when because you kind of flew off the other day? What is your issue about guys that kind of lean toward the old school? When you're discussing something, what is it that kind of
just
rub you the wrong way?
Just don't tell me somebody would kick somebody else's ass that you've never seen even fight before. That's all.
So basically the same thing that they're saying from the other side. And see, that's what Mark said earlier. Ignorance play a lot in this. And ignorance, people take ignorance because El Jefe did it one time before. That's why I don't call you out El Jefe. Ignorance is not a negative thing unless you take it as being negative. Ignorance just means lack of knowledge of. So ignorance plays a lot of part in this. Like, people are ignorant of whatever fighter, whatever side, whatever era, and then they come in with this argument. You cannot come in with an argument if you don't know both sides. And that's the problem that you really have. People just going off of one side. If you don't know how this guy fought over here, you've never seen him fight, you don't know anything about his opponents, who he's fought, then how can you tell me Floyd Mayweather can beat him? Because you don't know anything about him, and vice versa. If you know a lot about Aaron Pryor per se, you don't know shit about Floyd Mayweather, how the fuck you gonna tell me Aaron Pryor can beat Floyd Mayweather? You don't know anything about Floyd Mayweather. So ignorance plays a part in this, bro. You can't go arguing that this guy will beat the hell out of that guy, and you don't know anything about that guy. All you know is your fighter, like DSFG. Danny Garcia beats everyone. You don't know about it.
Wait, hold on, bro. Don't bring DSFG, bro. He's not here, bro. Come on, man. Let's not do it.
I don't care. This is my live, nigga. Wrong with you. But still, you don't know about the other guys. You can't tell me this guy can beat him. You know what I mean? I'll bring up El Jefe. You can't tell me Rocky Martinez is going to beat everybody. You don't know about everybody.
Think about it, man. Danny Garcia has 0 losses, whereas Ali has 6 losses. Which one is better, man?
Yeah. Anyway, Like when it comes to the history thing, I hear a lot of people always talk about the idea, oh, this guy says that this guy from this era beat this guy from this era, right? And then a lot of people push that to me as though I've said it. Because I study history, right? And that's something that bothers me. Really does. Because I don't think anyone here can ever say that I would say that this guy would whoop this person's ass for sure if I've never seen them fight.
All right. See, it's guys like this. See, and and this is a prime example of it. And Alistair, since you want to put your comment up there, I'm going to utilize it. And Alistair, you've been with me for a long time, so you know how I do. I always tell you to stick to MMA, but you don't ever want to listen to me. This is the type of comment that is an example of pure ignorance. Okay? And the reason I say this is an example of a comment of pure ignorance, because Alistair doesn't have a clue of anything about any boxer. This is the truth, guys. Before 2010. But
Dico Torcampo knocked out me.
But not having really any information of these guys, any boxer before 2010, he has Canelo and Mayweather beating them.
Okay.
All.
Can I ask a question? I want to throw two fantasy fights to everybody on the panel, right? Right. At 160 pounds, I want you guys to tell me who you think wins between Canelo and Marvin Hagler.
Oh shit! They were just talking about that on James' channel today. Yeah, I can't see Canelo beating Marvin Hagler, and I got Hagler winning that fight.
Yeah, my opinion,
I got Canelo, bro.
In my opinion, I think that Hagler would probably outbox Canelo. He'd have his issues, but I think Canelo would outbox him, or I think Hagler would outbox him.
Oh, I'm about to say, bro, what the? Okay, I got you.
So
Hagler got outboxed, bro, by Sugar Ray Leonard, bro. So what do you expect Canelo, who has actually moved up to 168?
Hey, J Blues, what do you think about Hagler versus Canelo? I'm not having that shit, Jefe. You go and chill for a second. You chill backstage. Matter of fact, let me let Smoke up here. Somebody with some sense in their damn head. What's up, Smoke?
Yeah, what's up, man? How you feeling?
Oh, I'm good. Mark just asked the panel.
What's up, panel? What's up, chat?
Smoke.
Yeah, Mark just asked the panel, Hagler versus Canelo. Who you got in that fight?
Yeah, I got Hagler. Too much heart, too much determination, too skilled, outboxes. I think. Yeah, just too much.
Yeah. Johnny Boy.
12 rounds, Hagler beats his ass and gets fucked over on the scorecards. 15 rounds, he knocks him out. He knocks Canelo out.
Now here's the other one, right? For everybody, just because Floyd beats all welterweights. Who you got? Floyd versus Tommy Hearns.
Hitman.
Wow.
Well, I'd pick Tommy Hearns by decision. I think Floyd would be too respectful of that right hand, but he'd be swinging at air.
Nah, I don't agree with that. I don't think Floyd would be respectful of a goddamn thing. And as a matter of fact, I think Floyd would do a lot more to give Tommy something to think about. And I mean a lot of thinking, because when we come to thinkers, let's think about this now. This is the sweet science. When we come to IQ and thinkers in that ring, like a lot of people don't like Floyd. They don't understand what the fuck he was doing in that ring. Well, see, that's where I come in. Like, fuck, I look at fighters in the ring. Floyd's gonna make Tommy think on a level he has not thought before. And I don't give a fuck what no one says. It's not gonna be as easy as people think because Tommy Hearns had the long jab and the dimension. It's not gonna be that easy to solve that Floyd Mayweather puzzle. I don't know what the hell y'all was watching in that ring, but it was a reason he escaped and did what he did in that ring, bro. He did a lot. He's going to make Tommy freaking Hearns think. I'm not saying Floyd beats him right off like that. I'm just saying let's not just think that Tommy Hearns washes the Floyd Mayweather, because I don't think so.
Yeah, I got Hearns winning that fight. Floyd, like Floyd. I like Hearns. I like both of those guys. I actually love both of those guys. But yeah, I don't. Speed. He had faster hands. Just at 147 though. 147 Floyd versus 147 Hearns.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem I have. I don't have. Yeah, that's an L on Floyd. That's an L for Floyd.
Yeah, I would pick Hearns. I'm just saying I don't want I hear people. Oh, he'll watch. Nah. He ain't gonna just watch no fucking Floyd Mayweather, bro. That's not happening.
Well, we know who Johnny's gonna pick.
Well, why do you say that, intangible? You know I love Floyd. Come on now. But yeah, I mean, that's my favorite fighter of all time. But
oh, my bad.
I mean, Floyd would have beat the shit out of Benny Leonard if you wanted to ask me that. But anyways, yeah, I got Hearns in fucking 4 rounds. He lands it right, he goes to sleep. Floyd's chin sucks. People overrate it because he took one good right hand from Mosley, and people act like he's got from a 40-year-old Mosley, mind you, and then people act like he's got a fucking, Carlos fucking Monzon, Jake LaMotta, Marvin Hagler chin because he took one shot from an old Mosley. Fuck out of here. Tommy Hearns puts him to bed the first right hand he hits him with.
No, sir. Well, what round then, Johnny?
4 or 5.
Hell no.
He might. The Tommy Hearns.
I think he wins, though. I do think Hearns wins. Yeah, I agree with you, Jay Jefferson. I wasn't saying that Floyd beats him. I was just saying I don't think Tommy washes him. That's all.
The reason, here, can I say one thing, though?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people might agree with this. Tommy Hearns of the last 60 years may be the hardest hitting welterweight.
He
disguised it too, like the way he disguised it, and he not only had a hard hit, but because he disguised it so well with his hand feints, it had even a harder impact. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see.
And at welterweight, Floyd didn't fight anybody who hits anywhere even remotely as hard as Tommy, bro.
Yeah,
and by design type too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Tommy would have smoked this bitch ass, but yeah. Tommy would have smoked this bitch.
I mean, bro, I know Duran probably was leftover crumbs from the Hagler fight, but if he can smoke Duran with one right hand, he's gonna fucking smoke Floyd, bro.
That was at 54 though, homie.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Hey, didn't Jackson fought at welterweight at one time, didn't he?
Who?
Julian?
Didn't he fight at no, he fought at 54, right?
Yeah. Julian Jackson won 154 and 160.
54 and 60. Yeah, 54 and 60, yeah. Because I know if that bastard was at 47, I was about to say, no. But no, I think Hearns might be one of the fucking hardest punches.
Even that at 154, Julian Jackson and Tommy Hearns for biggest puncher is still a good conversation.
Him and Tito's another one.
No.
Tito.
No, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good conversation. I agree with that, Mark. But I would pick Jackson. I think Jackson probably had a little more pop. McCullough probably.
I'm just saying, Tommy knocked out cruiserweights, bro.
Yeah, Tommy Hearns has some pop, bro. That's why I say you make a good point. He could have been the hardest hitting motherfucker.
Tito's another one up there.
He's up there, but Tommy could hit you with the right hook, the left hook, the straight right. Tito's biggest punch was that left hook.
I didn't say I was putting him above Tommy. I was just saying he's up there.
Yeah. Hitman, Jay Jefferson, that's a Detroit man. You know he all about the hitman. Hitman Tommy hits Mayweather with that right hook. Mayweather is not getting up, bro. Yeah. Mayweather,
honestly,
I don't disagree with that, but Mayweather ain't gonna let him hit him with that right hook. So
yeah, see, the issue also is Mayweather had really long arms, but that doesn't. So so once he got hit, once he got cracked twice in the Mosley fight, right? And the second time he got cracked, he got on his bike, he outboxed him, he clinched. He started being a lot more intelligent in the ring, right? But he has the dimensions to do that with a Sugar Shane Mosley. I don't think he can do it with Tommy Hearns. Once he gets cracked and tries to outbox him, I think he's going to find himself even in more trouble.
Well, South Court just said you don't need a chin if the opponents can't hit you. Sugar Ray with his small frame beat Hearns' ass
And
No.
Hearns was beating.
Okay, now hold on. Yeah, but he don't hit like Sugar Ray Leonard though, bro. That's the other thing people be forgetting, dog. Tommy didn't have the greatest chin. I'll give him that, but he had a ton of balls and heart, dog. And Floyd ain't gonna have no kind of pop to keep Tommy off of him. None. He's gonna walk through everything, Floyd, because Floyd hits like a fucking bitch anyway at 47. So yeah, he ain't gonna be able to keep Tommy off of him. He's gonna keep coming after him and coming after him and coming after him with them long ass arms and pop his ass, dog. Yeah, it's. Come on, man.
I honestly think the fight goes to the cards, but Hearns wins. I mean, I honestly believe that he's going to get hit with a good right hand from Hearns, and he's going to back off and be respectful. But you know, even when he tries to counter, with how good Hearns is at controlling the distance and using that 78-inch reach or whatever it is, I mean, he's going to be hit. He's going to be swinging at air when he tries to counter. It's just going to be flying.
Yeah, see, the problem is Tommy Hearns can box. See, Floyd can take your plan A away, but Tommy Hearns' plan B, C, and D is also pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Don't forget that plan E where you just start swinging for you trying to fucking head off.
The idea that that Floyd is better than Sugar Ray also, I'm not buying into. So the fact that Sugar Ray could do it to Tommy Hearns has no bearing on what Floyd can do.
Nah, because Sugar Ray had to come alive and make that shit happen. It wasn't just that his style beat Tom. Like, his whole eye was swollen the fuck shut, and Dundee said, "You're blowing it, kid. Speed. You gotta beat him with." And he went out there and fucking lit his ass up, bro. I mean, Floyd's not gonna step to him like he did in that 12th or 13th round.
Right. Yeah. Well. Again, I'm not picking Tommy Hearns. I just don't agree that he smashes Floyd. I think Floyd offers trouble to him. That's all. 1, 2 kid, if you out there in the chat, let me put the link back up for you, dog. I was about to. Oh, he might be back then. Oh, that's a rival. But anyway, 1, 2 kid, if you're in the chat, click the link. Well, yeah, man. I don't know. Yeah, Floyd. You know, Floyd was a smaller fighter too, though. Like, he came up to 147. So, you know, Tommy Hearns, big frame and shit, man. He was meant for that weight.
Can I give my little rant, my old grumpy man thing about new school versus old school?
Yeah. That's what this is about.
Yeah. So. But I really appreciate what's going on with fighters, you know, taking control of their own. But really, the idea of the fact that they're not fighting each other coming up the ranks is a huge problem for me. And then also the fact that people, like the amount of revisionist historians that are out there, maybe because of BoxRec, maybe just because, I mean, a lot of new people come to the sport, they get interested, they go to see reference materials, and the stuff that they find is not actually, like, you know, not factually correct. And so you just start to hear a bunch of stuff. And yeah, that like the amount of, I guess, apocrypha in boxing is just, I guess it makes it worth discussing, but it becomes law after a while. It becomes the actual fact. Like, it is now going around. People are really saying that Manny Pacquiao's an 8th division champ, despite never holding a sanctioning body's belt at 140, right? But we're talking about champs or title holders or division champs by the, you know, sanctioning bodies are determining who the titleists are or who the champs are, right? Anyway, you know, it's just stuff like that. Like, just the minutia of the sport, the fact that, you know, the WBO had sanctioned fights before they were recognized sanctioning bodies. So there's a bunch of fights that were even recognized by a sanctioning body. But now, if you just look at it, you'll see Johnny Nelson with a ton of WBO, you know, title defenses, and you wonder why that guy's not in the Hall of Fame.
All right, Boxing USA. These new boxing fans are weirdos.
and just to piggyback. Yeah, just to piggyback on what you were saying about the number of people justifying the sanctioning bodies. And yeah, I think that what you're saying is logically sound and probably mathematically sound, and not really the issue, right? The issue is with the proliferation of sanctioning bodies. There's also been a proliferation of belts and guys not fighting each other. So, like the title has become watered down. Unifications have become watered down. For a fan, what you have to understand about boxing is what it's always been about, is the actual fight. You have to go and watch the fight in order to see, what is going on with the guy, how to properly rate him, how to assess whether or not he's going to beat another guy, all the stuff, like what boxing is unchanged. And that is watch the fights and appreciate a guy at the time, right? And then my last little thing is with the rise of fighters having control of their own destinies, you have fans that apparently feel like they can remotely control what a fighter does, like through derision or disrespecting or whatever, without ever even understanding what the hell the fighter goes through. Like to be a fighter in the first place, or to get in the spot to make decisions about their own career. And that's it, that's it.
Yeah, I feel that. Sweet Science Sports Dojo says everybody has a puncher's chance. I like to believe that to a certain extent, because here's why I say that. Some people pillow fisted, this, that, and the third, whatever. But sometimes you could just get clipped, bro, in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
To a certain extent, that's kind of true. Like, everybody does have a puncher's chance. You just have less of a chance the more skill that other guy has. If that other guy has more skill, then you have less of a chance to get that punch in there. Hence Deontay Wilder. But moving on.
Hey, D, can I say one thing before we move on?
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was just joking. Go ahead, Johnny boy.
And Intangible, and I don't know if Mark's still here, but Intangible and Mark know this. I'm not talking shit on the old fighters. They know how much props I give Archie Moore and Ezra Charles and some of these, and Ray Robinson. You know that, Intangible. So it's not like I'm shitting. Yeah. And Joe Louis and fucking me and Mark had a fucking argument for 2 hours one time about Joe Louis or Ali, bro. Like it. It's not that. I'm just saying, just don't, so I don't want anybody to get offended by that. I was just saying, like, don't throw up some dude from 1890 who nobody's ever seen fought and say he fucking kicked this guy's ass. That's all I'm saying, Intangible. So I don't know what.
Just to clarify something, I don't argue in favor of a fighter from the 1890s being able to beat somebody from the modern day. I just compare their careers.
No, I know that. You're just comparing the stats, dog. I understand that. I was just saying I didn't want you or Mark to take that the wrong way. And I hope you know. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that about wraps today's discussion up. It ain't really too much more we can talk about. Unless y'all want, I know, let's get some fantasy fights in here since we talking old school.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out for a second that
put them in the chat. Go ahead, Intangible.
Yeah, I'm currently watching Tommy Hearns knock out Pepino Cuevas in loops. That was the most beautiful knockout I've ever seen in my life.
That was a beauty.
He throws the 1-2. Cuevas is doing the stanky leg. Then he finishes him off with another right hand.
Yeah, that's a beauty.
All of y'all, this in the prediction league. Intangible, you in there. Get this smoke, you in there. J Blues, you in the prediction league?
Nah, man.
Oh. Y'all picked Kaminsky in that fight, didn't it?
Commission league.
Kaminsky, the rookie that fight on the prediction league card.
Yeah, because I just thought the fix would be in. That's all. I had split decision, but I thought it'd be the fix.
That's why you picked him.
Yeah, but it was split decision, right?
Yeah, it was the split decision.
But just the other way. That's all.
Yeah.
Let's look at some of El Jefe's things. Canelo versus Oscar at
Hold on. Time out on that. Why you pick Kaminsky? I'm interested because it seemed like everybody in the goddamn prediction league, everybody did besides me and Ty Legacy. I'm just interested in why everybody picked Kaminsky. I'm trying to get some sense. And what Smoke said, that makes sense. He thought the fix was in. Okay, that's perfect. That makes sense. Why'd you pick Kaminsky?
Because film study is for losers.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what Floyd said. Floyd said, I don't need to study
I
them.
ain't no fucking fighter, bro. I ain't no fighter. I'm trying to determine who's gonna win that fight. And this is what I seen. Like, this is two things I see. First off, I think I might have had an edge on many people in the prediction league because they know that Clay Collard is an MMA fighter. He got 26 MMA fights. So it's combat sports, bro. It's throwing punches. He had 26 fights before boxing. Then he had 12 fights in boxing, whereas this kid Kaminsky is 19 years old and have only had 6 fights. Clay Collard's body was hard. This kid's claim to fame, I only found a 2-minute clip of him fighting, some amateur shit, and some highlight reel from ESPN. That's all I could find on this kid Kaminsky. But in everything I seen of him, his highlights was, his claim to fame is body shots. Well, I'm like, if that's what his claim to fame is against Clay Collard, man, this man been taking kicks, knees, and shit to the body. If this is all this kid has to offer, and is the way he was looping those body shots when he came in there, I'm like, bro, Clay Collard is gonna stick. Clay Collard, he has good straight rights and good straight lefts, and that's it's bad, but it's from the UFC, and that told me he was gonna beat this kid.
He and Vaughn Alexander should have a fight to determine who the best journeyman in boxing is.
Who in Vaughn Alexander?
Clay Collard.
Clay Collard's not a journeyman, bro. He's got 13 fights. He's come from the UFC. He's just down getting better. He's trying to adapt. But obviously he adapted to boxing quicker than Kaminsky did.
Well, guess who slayed both of them, but not Kaminsky and these other prospects? Bektemir Melikuziev. He destroyed both. Knocked out Clay Collard, shut out Vaughn Alexander.
But that's supposed to happen on again, Clay Collard, MMA fighter. He's transitioning. He's transitioning to boxing.
No, I was just saying, what prediction league y'all talking about?
The fantasy boxing prediction league. Chant Ross that always be in here, and he be on your channel too. Chant Ross got the prediction. That shit's sweet too. The page on Facebook, that motherfucker got it all set up. If you don't have Facebook, just email him at champez22 at yahoo.com. I'll send it to you, his email.
Yeah, no, I ain't tripping. I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's Chant Ross' prediction. It's sweet, bro. We got boxers in there. Vic Darchinyan. Yeah, we got a couple of boxers, couple of trainers in there. Shit.
Damn, that's the real Vic Darchinyan. Damn.
Yeah, that's the real Vic Darchinyan, dog. Francis Bartholomew was in one season, but he started training and stuff. I guess he didn't have the time, but we had a few boxers in there.
That's what's up.
Damn.
Yeah, but hey, yo, that's what I was gonna say. I don't care what Floyd, Danny Garcia, none of these dudes told you. It's always good to watch film on your opponent. Always,
bro.
Always.
But see, a lot of those fighters that don't watch film, their trainers do.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if you're Floyd Mayweather, Muhammad Ali, Carlos Monzon, Pacquiao, Benny Leonard, whoever, bro. It's always good to watch film on your opponent. I don't care who said it's different.
Why you stay in the ghetto wizard's head like that, man?
Because, man, cause there ain't no full fight of this man nowhere, bro. So I don't want nobody telling me he doing shit to nobody. As far as I'm concerned, fucking Edwin Valero would have kicked his ass. So I don't even
think about it though. Them dudes ain't have film on their opponents. It made it even harder.
Good point. Touche.
Touche, intangible, touche.
But all right, I'm putting it in the chat for anybody who do want to check it out, man. It's just, if you got a Facebook page, just go there, right there. Fantasy Boxing Predictions League. Go there on Facebook. All you do is like the channel. Once you like the channel, put your picks in. You'll see the comment section. And Champ got all of the fights that's posted for this week listed. And you put your picks in, and boom, you're in. He'll put your name in the queue, and track your scores and all of that. I got to get back, man, because last week I messed around and winged it, and I ain't do too well. I got like 7th place and stuff. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to that 7th place nonsense. I got to be top 5 or better. Usually 1, 2, or 3. That's how I roll, son.
Yeah, I gotta be waiting until the big boys start back up again, because there ain't no way I can't fucking be looking up every dude with 4 pro fights.
Yeah, Johnny.
Yeah. I'll take it.
I made Samuel Shaw quit. Where you at, Samuel Shaw? Samuel Shaw was in the prediction league for a couple of seasons. I beat him up, hit him with a whole bunch of 1-2s. There you go. Look, dry snitching in my way.
Samuel Shaw, you got the same name as my cousin, bro. Exact same name.
Who that?
Funny as hell.
Who that, me?
No. Sam, I told him that one time. Yeah, he got the exact same name as my cousin, bro. Sam. I call him Sammy Boy.
Sammy Boy and Johnny Boy.
Yeah. He's
Hey,
my
yo.
little cousin.
What's up, El Jefe?
Yo, D Jefferson, man. I don't know if you saw my fantasy fights, bro. I would like to see the panel respond to them, bro, because they're great fantasy fights.
My bad. I did see those.
Yeah, those are fantasy fights, bro, that I don't know who would win, bro. They're like 50-50. I can't really make a pick, bro.
Let's start. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to start from the first ones. I'm going to get to yours, El Jefe. My bad. I see it. There they go. All right, boom. So, Canelo versus... Man, come on, bro. Oh, well, I don't know. Canelo, that is a pretty good one. Canelo versus Oscar, 155.
I'd pick. I would honestly pick Canelo to win that, or Oscar to win that fight, and here's why: because Canelo was not in his prime at 154. He had to pretty much kill himself to make weight at that weight, and he hadn't grown. You know, his prime pretty much started at 160, right? And Oscar at 154, that was the peak of his career when he had gotten his victories over Fernando Vargas. The second fight against Mosley, which he should have won, that was when he had pretty much perfectly matured as a fighter. He was, he had the right age. Floyd Sr. was the right trainer for him. In fact, he stated he was the best trainer of his career and got him back into form. And that was when he pretty much reached the peak of his boxing IQ. And I think Oscar was a really well-rounded fighter. You know, had a great understanding of when to box and when to bang. He was a little bit unintelligent with it, like to bang early on in his career, but started to get more intelligent as his career went on. And I think Oscar would probably outbox him.
Good breakdown.
That's a great breakdown, bro. That's a great breakdown.
Let me hear. I'll just pop mine off real quick. Somebody asked me this one before, like back in the day, and I was like, yeah, that's a good one. Because you catching a kind of green Canelo, but then you're catching Oscar like right before he's starting to slip too. But I got Oscar, man. I got Oscar. Yeah, they was replaying Mosley Oscar 2 a couple weeks ago, man. Oscar whipped his ass in that rematch. That was a fucking robbery.
Yeah, Jay Blues, you still in the building?
Yeah, man.
What do you think, Oscar or Canelo?
Oscar's too much for him, man. Oscar's got too much heritage. Like, he's a true old school black and white 1950s type fighter. And then he started evolving, like Intangible said, when Daddy Mayweather's in his corner. Look, man, if you got Emmanuel Stewart, Daddy Mayweather, or Eddie Futch, if you going up against that, you might this is a big fucking chance you're gonna get your ass whooped. Daddy Mayweather, Emmanuel Stewart, hands down some of the greatest trainers of all fucking time, man. Like, Oscar was leveled up just by being around him, bro. So, I mean, you're not gonna fuck with Daddy Mayweather, fucking Oscar, bro.
I feel you.
Yeah.
What you think?
Fuck Daddy Mayweather.
Get the smoke. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Man, see, you got Oscar is he's most effective with combinations, but if he doesn't hurt you with the combination, didn't Hopkins stop him with a body shot? I know it wasn't at 154,
Stopped him with a body shot.
Yeah, it looked like he was giving birth on the canvas.
Yeah.
That liver shot.
Yeah. De La Hoya has okay legs, but it's not like he's got like Austin Trout lateral movement. I don't know. I lean towards Oscar. But I give Canelo a hell of a chance at that in that fight. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I'm going Oscar, bro. For like saying Canelo to me was too green, and I say this and see now I can comfortably say this about Oscar De La Hoya because sometimes when these kids are fighting and like Teofimo Lomachenko, you would assume that Teofimo is too green, but you never really know. At this point in time, I'm gonna say Canelo was too green because I know what Oscar was. I know it's all over with. It's said and done. I think Oscar was too much for him, too smart for him. He had too many tools in his tool bag. I think, matter of fact, it wouldn't have been the same type of beating, but I do believe he probably would have outclassed Canelo similar to the way Floyd outclassed him because he was just that much better than him at that time. So I want to go with Oscar De La Hoya in that fight. But that was actually a really good fight, El Jefe. Really good fight. Next one, Spence. This is easy to me. Spence versus Terry Norris. Smoke. What do you think? That one's easy to me.
Terry Norris is a 154 pounder, right?
Yes.
Spence has never fought at 154. I mean, he debuted at 154, but he weighed 149 pounds. He had literally one fight at 154. I don't get it. I don't even get that fight, really.
Yeah, they're the same size, dog. What do you mean? Yeah, they're the same.
Look, you know what? Even without going through all of that smoke, to me, this is simple. I cannot put Spence over Terry Norris. I'm sorry. Like, I'm a Spence fan, but I don't even know. That's not even a fantasy fight to me because Spence ain't done enough yet for me to pick him against Terry Norris.
The way I see it, man.
Fought the type of opponents he need to fight for me to assess that. He has not done enough in boxing for me to assess that. And for everything that Spence done in boxing, and I'm a fan of him in this era and what I think he would do to the guys in this era, I cannot compare him to a Terry Norris. If I would have to, my opinion on a fight between them two, I'm saying Terry Norris.
Yeah.
Stylistically, man, Terry Norris is just, in my opinion, like, of course, Spence hasn't fought at 154, so he's unproven. But Terry Norris' style, he's fast. He's got blistering combinations. He has good lateral movement, good craft. I mean, the only way Spence could win this fight is if Terry Norris starts a fight in the middle of the ring and gets disqualified for the fourth time. But Terry Norris, I mean, this dude was a 3-time super welterweight champion and a unified champion at one point in his career. Like, come on.
Bro, here's what would have happened. Terry Norris would have beat the dog shit out of Spence. hit him like 4 times when he was fucking flopping over the canvas already. Then Mills Lane would have jumped in there, threw him off, and then he would have got fucking DQ'd. That's how that would have went down.
I'm not sure, like, at the end of the day, we can't say, but just from what I've seen, because this is things that we can compare. Because I've seen fucking ton of Terry Norris fights, and I've seen damn near all the Spence fights, so I can compare it. From what I've seen, the level of competition these guys have faced, and man, you look at Spence's opponents: Mikey Garcia, Kell Brooks, Sean Porter. Terry Norris would have beat the shit out of all of them, for sure. So I can't really, in my opinion, he would have beaten them all. So I can't really assess Spence. Spence got to do more. And he got to fight at least at 154. He go up there and win some titles at 154, look pretty good. Then we can have that discussion. I think Spence is going to look good at 154.
I do too.
I mean, for me, since Spence, I don't know. Spence fight had one fight. It was his debut at 154. I can't even picture it really. It's easier for me to picture Andre Ward, Canelo Alvarez.
Right. Yeah. Day Blues, what you think, Day Blues?
I'm gonna pass on this shit, bro.
All right.
Hey,
Info. Navarrete Man, I got Johnny Tapia. I'll let that go around the board. Navarrete, Johnny Tapia. I got Tapia, man.
Oh, that's the easiest prediction I've ever made in my life, bro.
See, he hit him with something he didn't see, didn't exceed, didn't expect all night.
Yeah, bro. I mean, see, this shows the youth in El Jefe. He started off good with the Oscar and Canelo, but then he slips. The Norris and the Spence, the Navarrete and the Tapia. El Jefe, I don't know what you seeing from these young guys, but they ain't shown us enough yet, bro. This is where I can respect the old school guys. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? These motherfuckers ain't showing us nothing, bro. Like, not enough fights, nothing to say that he's going to beat a damn Tapia. Not in my opinion. I don't see it.
At least have him fight in the same weight class.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Fernando Vargas. Well, I like Jamel, but Tony Harrison, it's not enough of a win. I don't know, man. I don't think he beating Fernando. It's just
Fernando got that juice.
Yeah, bro. I don't like these are just things. I don't know, bro. I can't see these. I have faith. I think me, Johnny. I'm gonna answer for all of us. Vargas.
Yeah, I don't like either one of them, so there's no bias there. I don't like neither one of them. Fernando's still crying because Tito beat the shit out of him 20 years ago, and I watched that fight live. So take your loss up. He crying. He's crying more. He's been crying for 20 years harder than Jamal Charlo has about his video games. Though.
Yeah, but Jamel Charlo ain't no damn Tito. So
yeah, but Vargas is also kind of undersized, right? He's not a really 154 pounder, right, guy.
Yeah, but do you think Jamel Charlo beating Vargas? I don't know.
I don't know. Like Vargas' prime was as a child, right? Like he's just I don't know. He was all macho. Yeah. I feel like Ike Corte was really whooping his ass and took his foot off the gas. Vargas.
But does Jamel beat Ike Corte though?
Say again?
But does Jamel beat Ike Corte though? I don't think so. Like, that's the thing. I don't think Ike versus Jamel. I think Ike wins.
Ike Corte, I don't know. Ike Corte gives up on fight. The Ike Corte that faced Vargas stopped throwing punches, right? He would only show up for spots in fights. And then
that was it. That's one thing, because I like Jamel, because he do got a beard. He got a beard on him. He done proven that. So, Jamel, I don't got no beef with Jamel right now. It's just his punk, sissy-ass brother that don't want to fight nobody. They're not twins. Mikey Virgil Ortiz. Who y'all got? That is a fantasy fight because they ain't going to fight. Mikey versus Virgil. I'm giving total disrespect to Mikey. Damn the 1-2 and everything else. Virgil Ortiz I got him winning. Mikey too small. He's too small, bro. I don't even think he fit for 147. Virgil need to be going to 154 soon. And he's stopping everybody they put in front of him. He's not going to be like Spence getting there and try to bounce around and dance around on Mikey. He's going to go in there and try to put him away like a welterweight supposed to put a little guy moving up. And yeah, Mikey done had his second fight at 147, but it was an ass whooping, a complete demolition from Spence. And then, a shaky fight versus Vargas. So that ain't enough. I'm not convinced of Mikey Garcia at 147 now. And I think he needs to go back to 140 now. So even though Virgil's a prospect, I still pick Virgil over Mikey Garcia because I think he's too strong, he's too big, and he's, like I said, on his way to 154 now. So, yeah.
I think it just depends on whether Mikey can consistently get Virgil on, going backwards. I think he can hit him at spots. I think he can make Virgil miss a lot. Mikey's tough as hell. But yeah, he's undersized for the. I think both guys are undersized, but the wrong way, right? Well, Virgil is oversized for the weight, right? And Mikey is undersized for the weight. Yeah, damn. He does throw punches and bunches. If the fight is just fought in the pocket, then Mikey is gonna get his ass whooped. But if he can get Virgil moving his feet backwards, I think Mikey wins that fight.
I don't see how he gonna get Virgil moving his feet back. And the reason I said this is what I said about Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia, and why I knew Mikey was not going to be Spence, regardless of what people were talking about as 4th division champ and all of this nonsense. All you have to do with Mikey at 147 is disrupt his timing. And see, this is the thing with Mikey at 147. You don't have to be the strongest puncher either to do that. You just got to give him enough to disrupt his timing, and you're going to pretty much beat him because he's dimensions. He's not built for 147. He's not. Spence did everything to disrupt his timing. Mikey's the 1-2 fighter. He's a specialist at it, but he fights off of timing. Virgil Ortiz ain't going to let him get into any kind of rhythm, bro. And pushing Virgil Ortiz back, I doubt it. Mikey Garcia mess around and get stopped. Ain't going to be no flash knockdown. So Virgil Ortiz will keep him off timing all night long. All night long. Disrupt that timing, he'll beat Mikey. He'll beat him by the cards or he'll put him away. And I think it's a good chance he put him away because Spence had him hurt, but Spence turned on the juice too late. If Spence turned on the juice like in the 3rd or 4th round, he'd have put Mikey out in that fight. Virgil going to turn that juice on as soon as they hit the ring. They'll put Mikey away, man. I'm not convinced that Mikey Garcia at 135, 147, and I picked Pacquiao to beat him if they would have fought. I said Pacquiao would have beat Mikey Garcia. So, that's just my take on that fight, bro. Joshua, Prime Fighter Champion, said Joshua versus Lennox Lewis. Well, I'm going to answer for me and Johnny Boy. Lennox Lewis.
Bro, dude.
Oh shit! You can't ask that PFC. Not why Johnny Boy on this panel because he's not picking Joshua versus anybody in that goddamn era that had a belt. I don't think.
Homie, I got Ann Wolf beating fucking Anthony Joshua.
Smoke, who you got in that fight? Who you think win that fight?
But between Lennox Lewis and AJ,
yeah,
man, stop playing. Stop playing.
Good man, Smoke. Good man. Good man, Smoke.
You can only do so much of this stuff.
Yeah. No. I know that was a joke. I just really, this is Johnny Boy.
And D. Well, and that's why I hit y'all with. When I think of a good one, I like telling people about. Like when I said that Crawford and Pryor yesterday, and we had a little split. So when I think of a good one like that, that's why I be trying to, you know what I mean? If I think of a real.
Y'all check this out. I was on Ring this morning before this live, and it was a good one that was on his live. And either one, Prime George or After George versus Prime Holmes or versus After Holmes. So After George versus After Holmes or Prime. Oh. Yeah, I know. Y'all give me y'all answer in the chat to that one.
What are you considering Prime George?
Prime, like well, Smoke, you do it, dog. You always do this. You come up with the prime.
What he's saying? What he's saying, Smoke? He's saying like, okay, like.
I know what he's saying, but just make it easy. Just
no, I'm telling Smoke what you were saying, D.
Yeah.
What he's saying is like 70s George versus like 70s Holmes versus the George versus the George that came back versus
yeah. So yeah, I got the old ones. I got the old ones. It's just hard to gauge what George Foreman's prime was because he came up so fast, right? then that's just the issue, right? So I guess it's the first career. His first career versus his second career versus, I guess.
First, second career. What I was saying, get your prime of him and measure him as there, bro. That's why I said you can't. I can't, you know what I mean, determine what your prime of him is going to be, nigga. What you think, though? Who you think? Who y'all got? Y'all put that in the chat, too. Prime Larry Holmes versus prime George Foreman.
Okay, so for me, if there was no Michael Moore, converted middleweight to heavyweight champion, then we would not have a late George Foreman champion. What you would have is a bunch of guys getting money off of beating up an old fat man and him trying to leverage his celebrity into his retirement package, which he successfully did. So I'm gonna go with Larry Holmes, who actually had a credible win off of a real heavyweight. And then also Larry Holmes, his jab and all that was cool, but you weren't gonna drop. It took Muhammad Ali to stop George Foreman. That nobody else was gonna do that. And Larry Holmes outboxing George Foreman, hell no, that wasn't gonna happen. I think George Foreman would have whooped the dog shit out of in his first career versus 70s George Foreman versus 80s Larry Holmes. Nah, that's George Foreman all day.
Yeah, Sporting Advantage. What was George Foreman's reach? 82 and a half. I think it's like 82 and a half inches. Something like that. I'm pretty sure it's like 82 and a half. Yeah, he has some long arms.
I'll say, but if they both young, I got George. If they're both older, I got Larry. I'll say that.
I think we all agree on that, bro. Because I already answered the question earlier, so I just wanted to see what you guys had was. And I say that too. I think younger George, older Larry. Like that's where I am with it. Nah, bro, because I'm just going over a couple things. I'm getting ready to get off. You don't know nothing about George Foreman or Larry Holmes, so stop that, man.
And I got them both top 5 heavyweights all time, both of them. Yeah.
Oh,
I got.
All right, and who you got? George Foreman, Larry Holmes, first and second career.
I got Larry Holmes beating George Foreman in his prime and Fat George, bro. That's an easy fight for Larry Holmes. The style matchup is the jab is gonna keep George Foreman out of place. His movement is gonna give him a lot of problems, bro.
So
also Johnny Boy, you a bitch. Johnny Boy, you a bitch, bro. You don't know shit about.
No, your ass was gonna do something dumb. He come with a little decent breakdown, and then you gonna do that dumb shit. I was actually decent. I wouldn't mind anybody picking Larry Holmes in both careers. I would probably debate George in the second career. I wouldn't debate. I picked George for the first career, but I wouldn't debate like Larry Holmes. If somebody picked Larry Holmes, that's a fair pick. I don't think we can honestly pick. Like Smoke made good points too. Michael Moore coming up and that, like he didn't really beat an official heavyweight, a guy that was a real threat at that era. Versus Holmes was fighting guys that were threats. So, real heavyweights. You know what I mean? So I would definitely pick. And Larry Holmes' jab was so sweet, bro. I don't think older George could deal with that jab, man.
Yeah. Hey D, I'm gonna jump off, homie.
All right, I'm getting ready to shut it down anyway. Thanks for coming on, Johnny Boy.
All right, D. Get the smoke. Take care, bro.
Yeah, next time.
Hey, Smoke, you got some closing thoughts, fam? GGG Trinidad.
Yeah, man. My closing thoughts are boxing is in a great place. It's been on a great run since 2017. COVID, broke it up. We haven't had great fights so much, and the new school fans of social media and all that. It's entertaining. So to me, it's better than Ring Magazine, which was a lot more informative, but not quite as entertaining. But to each era has its own sort of characteristics. Appreciate it all. Celebrate, don't hate.
Facts. GGG Trinidad. I got Trinidad in that one, Martin Machine. And Cooney versus Wilder. Good fight. Jay Cooney had a lot of flaws. He could box, but he had a lot of flaws, and I think Wilder could potentially get that right hand in there. put Cooney to sleep. So good fight. That's a fight I will have to see. I wouldn't. Cooney's one of those guys from the old school. I'm not just picking over Wilder. Wilder's got impeccable timing with that right hand. People tend to not think about that. You call him a one-trick pony. Well, guess what? He perfected that one goddamn trick. So he's going to catch a lot of guys with it. So that's what I think about that fight. Toss up, Jerry Cooney, Deontay Wilder. What do you think, Smoke? Cooney Wilder.
Cooney Wilder, I got Cooney had a sweet jab too.
Yeah.
I think he's just it's just the dimensions are just a problem, right? They both have their huge flaws. I don't know. It's just, to me, you gotta. Yeah. That's a good fight. I think that Wilder probably tag him.
Toss up. Oh yeah.
I think Wilder's a little bit too fast, a little bit too long. His reach is a little bit too. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because Cooney was what, like 6'2"? He was shorter than Wilder, wasn't he? Wasn't Cooney like 6'2", 6'3"? Maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure what his reach was. I don't remember. I can look it up.
I don't know what his reach was, but I think his height, I think he's like 6'2", 6'3". Roberto Duran, Manny Pacquiao at 135, Smoke. Didn't we answer this one?
Roberto Duran and Pacquiao? Roberto Duran will beat the absolute the hell out of Pacquiao. Like, why?
Yeah, I couldn't pick Pacquiao. I like Pac, but I don't think Pac. Nah, not at 135, man. Isn't that where did Marquez sleep him at?
It was either 140. No, not at 140. 147.
Was it at 147? Marquez slept him at 140 or 147?
No, it wasn't at 140. I know it wasn't at 140 because that was he only fought Hatton there, right?
Yeah, bro. No, I can't see him beating Durant. Not at 135. I don't know, man. I don't know boxing virus. Nice little scrap. Yeah, we talked about that one earlier, Prime Fighting Champion. Hagler runs through GGG, in my opinion.
Right. The issue, so someone was like, they got AJ beating Lennox. The issue with Lennox, like, it depends on which Lennox you're getting, right? So you need the Emmanuel Stewart Lennox, that's firstly. And then, like, if you get the one that fought Michael Grant that's just going to foul you, hold you, and hit you and all that nonsense, like, AJ got nothing for that.
Yeah. Michael Nunn, Andre Ward, it's a good fight. Depending on how many times Andre Ward hit him in the balls. That's a good fight. What you think, Smoke? Ward, Nunn. I edge
Andre Ward all day.
Yeah, I edge Ward on that one. I think Ward's too smart for Michael Nunn. I think Michael Nunn will put up a fight, though. Don't get me wrong, but I think Ward's too technical, too smart. Ward's an overall good fighter. Had too many tools in his tool bag for Michael Nunn, my opinion. I like Ward in that fight. All right, I ran through the last one. All right, everybody. Great discussion. No more fighting about the old school and the new school, man. You can't really compare a lot of things. You can have the discussions, but just remember, if you have the discussion about the old school and the new school, and keep things in perspective. Some things you can discuss and agree to disagree on, but you can't really tell somebody they're right or tell somebody they're wrong because it's like comparing apples and oranges. You can't compare apples and oranges, so you can't say anybody's wrong or right. Just keep an open mind, an open perspective when we come to this old school versus new school battle, so we don't have blow up arguments. We have boxing discussions. Y'all know how I always in this thing. For the love of sports, let's talk about it. Peace. Ugh.